Sorry, I did that now.
Oh.
All right, my bad. All right, sorry everybody. Fortunately we haven't missed any moves, but a snafu on my part. Hey everybody, Will and Sam here. I guess our intro did not actually get picked up thanks to me not clicking a button, but fortunately we have not actually missed any plays here from day 2 at the 2025 World Cup. Apologies to everybody behind the scenes who just did a very nicely produced introduction and all of that stuff, but at least we didn't miss any Scrabble. Sorry about that, Sam, and to our producer, Christian, behind the scenes. In any case, we were just talking off air about our 2 players, and they are the top 2 players in the standings right now. David Whitley in first place and Josh right behind with the same record, but a little bit lower spread. And Sam, you'll have to repeat yourself, but you were mentioning that you and Josh have played a lot of games lately in the same region.
Yeah, I don't know David as well. He's going to play Maw, which looks fine to me. There's no bingos. Going to take a minute and a half to look for bingos with that first blank that he's already got. But yeah, I play Josh like almost every week at the DC, at one of the DC clubs and at local tournaments. He's kind of like my, like the top competition. I mean, one of the best players in Collins in North America. So it'll be fun to watch him play. He's, already faced with a tough decision here. I'd be looking to play, maybe Airy, A-E-R-I-E or something, but he might almost, I'm not sure how he's going to get out of this rack, because that doesn't look to play very well anywhere without setting up a big spot for David.
Yeah, certainly with all those vowels on Josh's rack, you see 6 of them there. I guess really the standout place to play Airy is if he thinks about the R hook.
Oh,
I now live in the Philly suburbs, so Bryn Mawr is definitely a key location in this area. So there you go. You could play that. That is a valid word. That definitely has its warts as a play, leaving just I-O. I don't know. I feel like the other option is just playing owie through this W. Very useful, newly added word in one of the previous updates for when you get an injury of some sort. Owie, I guess, is the word you would say. There we go. He's going to go ahead and play this. I feel like this is maybe a little bit better than exchanging, Sam, but it's close.
Yeah, I agree. It seems a little better than exchanging. Just, your leave is decent, really. I mean, you're probably going to keep something like EIR anyway on an exchange, or EAR. I did miss that Mar hook. It's a little tricky to see. I wonder if Josh, it's possible he didn't see it, or it's also possible he saw it and then he thought Owie was a better play. I don't know. Do you have a preference between those two, or close?
I guess, yeah. I mean, the nice thing about it, if you're Josh, is you do have an R. So in your leave, you contain a hook for Owie, right? So if you do draw something and it turns out he has done just that, so just in the nick of time to his vowel-heavy leave, he's drawn Perinia, which is now going to play with Rowie, assuming that David bingos in a way that does not obstruct it. Of course, it does seem very likely that David is going to bingo with his own play of, he is going to play dashing. That seems reasonable. Other options could have been to just play something with Dowie on top, but even that would have yielded bingos back to Josh. So fireworks in the early going. The highest scoring bingo, Sam, was actually shading alongside Owie's, putting the H in this spot. Do you think that would have been worth it there for 85 points?
I do, slightly. I think, you're sacrificing 6 points and you're putting a G in a triple when, Josh's low point letters, it's unlikely he's going to triple through a G. It's possible. You already know there's only one blank out there. So to me, yeah, I probably wouldn't have sacrificed that much, but it's not a big difference. And Josh's going to quickly play his, what's probably his best play, although he could have Well, he is opening up quite a big scoring spot there with that E. So he could have sacrificed 3 points and played Perinia at 12A, forming Da.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy when you look at it, how many positions the word perineum, the 7-letter word on his rack, actually fit on the board. It fits here underneath the D, or it fits here, making 2 overlaps. It fits here, here. Where else? On top, you can play it on top of the D. So there were a million places to play perineum, but none of them scored as well as Josh's eventual play of Perigean. Only scary thing about it is this scoring spot right here could be pretty bad, but there already is, as the board spins on me here. Let's see if my marks end up in the same place. Not quite. But opening this spot, maybe not quite as much of a downside when you already have a good scoring spot to a triple open. Generally, that principle, Sam, is if there's one good spot on the board, that's kind of dangerous. But if there's 2, you might get one next turn.
Yeah, that makes sense. So this is fine. You're always, putting an E there. You always worry, if David is just bingo, he drew the Z, he's going to get 60 points plus. If he drew the J, he almost certainly is going to fit a word there. But yeah, there is this other spot with the A in dashing. And actually, Josh has drawn the Z, so it's possible he'll get to play Zest if David doesn't play there. To your point about there being multiple spots on this board for good plays. And speaking of good plays, David does have one bingo available. It's not the easiest, in my opinion, to spot. So it's an 8-letter word. I don't know if I want to spoil it just yet, but though people are mentioning it in the chat.
Yeah, has been mentioned in the chat a few times. One bingo available only, snow line through this end. Oh, the crazy thing about that is not only does Josh, as you said, Sam, he's got Zest ready to rock next turn for a very good score. If Snowline is spotted, he might opt to play Azons through the end of Snowline. So he's going to have 2 choices that score a ton of points for his Z, no matter what David does, unless maybe David misses his bingo somehow and plays up here. That might actually help him somewhat in some ways in this position. But I really think if David misses his bingo, he's very, very likely to play something like this right here. Who, through the H of dashing, looks like a fantastic option to keep a very strong bingo leave. So I feel like Josh is destined to hit that Z hard. And we're getting a lot of points in the early going. I do worry as every second ticks off David's clock, Sam, that maybe he is not thinking of Snowline.
Yeah, I mean, probably not because it scores really well. I mean, it puts the W on a triple letter and then doubles the word. So if he'd seen it, he probably would have played it by now. But sometimes, oh, there it goes. So I was just about to say, sometimes it takes a while, I mean, for those, those of us who don't have quite that anagramming, skill of like a Josh or yourself or a Dave Wiegand. Sometimes it takes a couple minutes before you see these words. So great play, great find. And that's it's really kind of a crucial play because, he was going to go to he would have, Josh would have taken the lead and Josh is holding the play also. One thing about Josh, so I said, I know his game pretty well, playing him a lot. He holds a lot of words. He doesn't always challenge the words. So he just likes to make sure, that he's remembering things correctly. So now once, whether Josh, he's accepted the play, and once he plays either probably Azons or maybe Zest, Josh won't quite retake the lead. So a critical play by David.
Yeah, agreed. Putting that W on the triple too. That play got 88 points with the power from that W all the way over to the double word score. So great find by David, like you said. He could have seen it immediately, but just been checking to make sure. I mean, there are some negatives to this play positionally, opening up multiple triples and an S hook here. You might have been saying, well, do I have anything else that doesn't do what this does to the board? But the answer is no. That's the only bingo available. And now it is up to Josh to realize that I do think Azons is a little bit better than Zest, just to undouble your two O's. Ooh, okay. I think that's a slight miss unless there is some reason that I'm not realizing. I think Azons looks good to keep a slightly better lead. Not only that, Sam, if you play Azons here, Josh, with his two S's, he would retain that unobstructed snow lines hook for next turn, whereas now he's limited the downside risk of bingos, for example, going across and pluralizing. So maybe a little inaccuracy by him, but certainly nothing that is going to immediately torpedo the game.
Yeah, I think that's totally agree. Well described. And I doubt this was a stat like I doubt he saw Azons, because to sacrifice 3 points to block the E, this row 15 or that triple word score in the bottom middle can be quite dangerous, as we're about to see. David's going to hit it pretty hard because he has that Y to make Nye and Y. So yeah, it's slight inaccuracy, and he's going to kind of pay for it in this case, though he did draw consonants, so he's in some he would have been a little overloaded had he played with consonants, had he played Azons. David looks like he has Melty. This is his highest scoring option by quite a bit, by at least over 10 points. So looks good to me, despite the leave. Would you have sacrificed any points there, or just taken the points?
Yeah, just MOY there leaves a little bit better, but 15 points is a lot. And I don't think that ELOT leave is so good that you would want to really place a premium on sacrificing that many points. So I do feel like David has made the correct choice here to go for 56 points. As I often say on these broadcasts, I would do a lot of things, Sam, for 56 points. Let's not even get into it.
You bring it up. It's like one of your catchphrases. So
yeah.
Yeah. So Josh does actually. He is going to get that S spot still. Probably. Well, if he might be able to use that S spot, I'm not sure. I mean, I see like Boss. He could play with snow lines. To score well. There's a fun suggestion in the chat of crossbowies. Josh, if one of those W's was in an open spot, he would have the bingo crossbow. So crossbowies would be kind of a fun, invalid play for all of 14 points or whatever. But yeah.
Can you tack? Maybe you could tack another S on there. Well, he doesn't have a third one, I guess. Crossbowies with two S's, some kind of archaic. But yeah, very creative.
Yeah, if he really needed to open the board, I guess. So yeah, I mean, when you have an S, you at least my eye is immediately drawn to that snow line spot, like you said before. That's going to be where you can score the best. I mean, you could leave it open if you have a good alternative, just because you have the last two remaining S's. Like, it probably won't get obstructed, but I'm not seeing a good way to do it. It looks like well, actually, I mean, looking at the simulation you're running there, and it looks like the engine likes Boss with snow lines, or maybe Scrob at 12D would give him a chance to score well now, and hit that S spot next turn. Also seeing Corso suggested. I didn't know that word in column O, but I think Boss is probably fine. There's not a ton of great S. I don't know. I mean, you want to keep an S, of course. There's Moz, and there's not a ton of great need for an S here, but and COR is not a bad leave. Maybe you can bingo with Rowies. So
that's why I think it likes that COR leave, is that when you do get a bingo, you often are going to be able to play it here with Rowies. That's my guess of why Boss does well. It scores 39 points, of course, which is very good, but all right, let's see. So Corso is the play. I feel like that is very defensible, Sam, just keeping the S unless there's a really compelling reason that the board is terrible for the S. But as you noted, there is this hook here, excuse me, which is often going to be useful. And then some of the time you'll get a vowel, something like ES is still going to fit here. So the S is far from useless. And I do appreciate the instinct of wanting to keep one. I certainly don't mind Corso here for Josh, as he continues to kind of need a bingo. He's down by, 40-ish points. Looks like 45 points plus whatever David's able to score. So Josh does need a bingo to equalize. And certainly he has to hope that David does not draw one. And he certainly hasn't. He's got 3 sets of duplicated tiles, never something that we love to see as Scrabble players. We love to have those harmonious mixtures of all different vowels and consonants in a nice ratio. And it looks like fiad, probably feud, or however you're supposed to say that word, looks like that goes right here on top of snow lines kind of nicely. I would like that play from him.
Yeah, so do I. It kind of does everything he wants to. It gets rid of all of his duplicates and his F, which is not like good for bingoing. You usually want to like use it up to score. And it kind of starts to obstruct. I mean, oh, he's playing it with Dowies. That's a valid word.
Whoa, I don't think. Oh, this could be a huge unforced error. I don't believe this is valid. And look at Josh's instant. You saw his face, his furrowed brow instantly. This is a pretty big mistake, especially given with, the maybe even a better spot for that word just in general. I guess this is a good spot to play this for defensive purposes, responding to the R hook and whatever else you're worried about, T hooking onto owies. But this is going to be a huge, huge swing in Josh's favor as this word is going to come off the board, Sam. That is, man, we're seeing a lot of phonies from the Collins games so far on stream.
Yeah, usually, you don't want to... there's less incentive to play a phony in Collins because it's only a 5-point, penalty for an incorrect challenge, right? As Collins players know. So it's very difficult to get away with a phony word, although it happened twice in the 3 games yesterday morning. So usually you're pretty incentivized to challenge anything you have even the remotest amount of doubt on. So yeah, a bit of an unforced error. Dowie is defined is as dull and low-spirited in Scots. So it's an adjective. It's an adjective that takes it compares. And I see Nitz Chukti in the chat is pointing out, Josh knows that it's an adjective. One thing, he's very well prepared in terms of the dictionary and anagramming, and he also does something a little bit rare, which is for Scrabble players, which he actually learns the meanings of the words. So for basically everyone except for possibly Nigel Richards, it helps us to know what these words actually mean if you can learn it. And so Josh is possibly remembering that Dowie, has that adjectival meaning, and there's dowier and there's dowiest, and maybe that helped him make that insta challenge. And now he's kind of faced with a bit of a I mean, he has no vowels, so
yeah,
kind of a tough decision. I mean, he like the engine seems to be suggesting maybe bonk through, but bonk is kind of what you don't want to do here, because David has, I should say, the engine with no inference. David can play fiat at the bottom of the board, kind of messing up some of these bingo lanes. So bonk, I'd be very reluctant to do this because you're basically blocking yourself. You have the blank, so you can kind of make up for it. You can hit harder spots like the T and zest, but it's I don't know. It's kind of the natural play in some senses, but it also blocks yourself.
Yeah, it's tricky because Josh needs to keep things at least a little bit open at this score, but he also wants to, figure out what could David have that would inspire him to have played fiat, and does he need to try to block the good location for it? I think that's, it's only a 26-point play, so I feel like Josh can think mostly offensively here. Excuse me, but I just want to respond to something you said, which I'm sure strikes some of our audience as kind of funny, which is how rare it is for somebody like Josh who knows all the definitions for words. You would think that that would be commonplace, but at this level, it is a rarity. And I know that rubs some people the wrong way, but in order to play this game at the highest level, we all have sort of limited memory RAM in our minds, and we have to commit as much of that to useful information as possible. And you know, sometimes the definitions of the words fall by the wayside in that effort. So kudos to Josh for actually knowing a ton of, and he really does. You can ask him pretty much anything that he plays at a tournament, and he is very likely to correctly verbatim tell you what the dictionary definition is. So yeah, a rarity. Maybe that's surprising to some, but not to those of us in the scene, Sam.
Yeah, well said. And just a correction on what I said previously. I said the engine was liking bonk. I was misreading it. It was liking bink. So he could have just played those same letters through the I, which I think would have been slightly preferable because, you know, he is and was trailing and, you know, wants to keep that hook as open as possible at the owies. It's not totally closed, but it's a lot more difficult to access now because you have to hook ba as well.
Yeah, it's not just that too, but playing bink down low, if you just look at how the board would look, you just have this sevens lane too off of the O. So not only do you have the owies hooks, but you just have a simple place to play sevens, which is now inaccessible. So I agree that maybe positionally bink was a little bit better given the score of the game. This does seem to knot things up a little bit more. Not that things are dead by any means. There are definitely still some places to play. Maybe you fit something through the eye, but it just got a lot tougher. And David's play of dosed made it even tougher to block this S, which could often be useful, as well as the T, a very not a conclusive block of the T, but a pretty solid one. Going to be really tough to use that T for a bingo now. So, and to make matters worse, Sam, Josh has failed to draw a vowel once again.
Yeah, Dose looked like a pretty nice play. David seemed to just not see the spot for Fiat on top of Snow Lines and Melty, because you would think he would probably play that since it was more than his original Fiat. But Dose was, you know, was good. Just kept his F. And yeah, Josh he's got this vowel problem. So I like it. Looks like the top, some of his options. I mean, he could do something as simple. He doesn't have any good options here, really. I mean, he could exchange, but he could try to sort of muddle through this with something like div, D-I-V, through the I and Snow Lines, or maybe nav. And of course, I'm looking at the engine. You know, nav, you don't really want to block yourself. The problem is, it's going to become a little tighter to fit a bingo. So it looks like he might be considering an exchange, which I really don't mind so much because, you know, David's going to block the board and you kind of want to give yourself a good shot to just fit this bingo right now. Like maybe he can draw an EST bingo or an IST bingo to the T and zest. That would, you know, kind of get him right back in the game, score really well, 80, 90 points maybe. So I don't have a big problem with this. It's not, I don't know if the engine would love it, but it seems reasonable because David should be trying to block up.
Yeah, practically speaking, it does make a good amount of sense. There are all those vowels that eluded Josh. I wonder if now he sort of wishes that he had one extra consonant, as that might make it more realistic that he actually is able to play something ending in EST. I feel like if you swap one of those A's out, right, for many consonants, you're actually looking at hitting something there, but he couldn't have known that, of course. And David is going to play phooey here. This is a fun word. I wonder if keeping the three vowels there is going to hurt him, though. There were certainly ways that he could have avoided such an imbalanced leave there. This play does have a good amount of defensive merit, though, Sam. It blocks a lot of the area on the base of the board, and DI does not take any hooks, so this E is now inaccessible. So a lot of good things about this play. Let's just see if David can draw consonants, and so far, ooh, I thought he was going to, but a couple more vowels might slow him down a little bit.
Yeah, well said. It looks like one of those options was the very tricky hook on to make pist. So he could have put his P and making upa. Again, I'm looking at the engine, so but for this, but tough to commentate and think at the same time sometimes. But that would have been a nice way to hold on to that F, to one of those consonants. And you could see, yeah, he would have had, well, a much stronger rack. I mean, he drew quite well, and he's still going to have vowel problems. But he has blocked, it's been pointed out in the chat, he did block Josh's bingo. So that is one credit to his play, is he's kind of blocked the best area. This is the problem with that bonk earlier. Bonk took out one lane, and now David's able to just play in the other lane, and now Josh is kind of stuck with a little more marginal lanes. He's going to hit a bingo eventually. His rack is too good, and he has the blank. So it's just good. He's going to make a bingo eventually, but it's just going to kind of take him more time than necessary.
Yeah. I also feel that if you look at this clock, I would be thinking with these letters, I have to have a bingo ending in a vowel here, right? I would be like, how could I possibly not have either a play like that or maybe something ending in N? I would be looking at these spots as well as this one for a while, but he doesn't have that much time to do that. And Josh has very few weaknesses as a Scrabble player, but I do feel that there are games where he can get into time trouble. And with this blank on the rack, the blank being the single biggest time suck of any tile in the game, because you have to consider so many possibilities to make it all these different letters in the alphabet. What could I do if I have A, B, C, D, and so on? I worry about his time right now, Sam.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think also that's a fair assessment of it's a good assessment, I think, of his kind of game. And so, talked about his strengths, his word knowledge, anagramming, play finding. And I think, he time management is maybe, an area he could, that would make him, push him even higher levels. And, he's already won the national won the SPC last year. So these are nitpicks, but it's difficult. It's there's a lot of marginal lanes. So ending in an E. So you're gonna look through all the sevens, maybe look through that T also. It kind of looks like you could somehow thread a bingo, maybe. Let's say you had some sort of word that ended in like ASTE or something like that. So it's he eventually he's going to have to give up, but this is a tough situation. And you kind of end up looking back. I don't blame him for taking time here, but then you look back at other turns and wonder where could time have been made up. I'm not even sure how he's gotten so low on time, actually, where it came.
Yeah, I mean, the first move was probably frustrating because you hate to play owie for such a low score. He thought for a while about Corso because there was a lot of different options there. Certainly the play of Bonk, which I feel like that's probably the biggest culprit in this game. If you could just take those letters and move them down right now and keep everything else equal, we would be seeing a very different game. For example, all else being equal, which probably is unfair to say because David seemed to be very hell-bent on trying to block this spot. So maybe he figures out a way to do that instead of some of the other plays that he's made. But yeah, just shift the B, N, and K down, hold all else equal. Josh is playing R8s and Towies right now and putting himself in much better position. As it is, very difficult situation for him. And he is going to play Auk into the K of Bonk, 14 points, leaving a very balanced leave. He is certainly thinking about, can he draw something ending in EST? I'm sure maybe he can draw a hook to Auk, of which there are several. But I feel like David is very likely to play rodeo here, Sam, and score pretty well while dumping a lot of those vowels.
Yeah, that looks like a nice play. Auk seems fine, and you're opening up some hooks that could be good for could be a place you could use your blank to since it is a little easier when you have the blank. So rodeo's a nice option, scores really well. He might not be thinking about that lane, that EST lane, but just because there's only one S and one blank. There is a really nice play Matthew O'Connor suggested in the chat. So between the DI from dashing and phooey and that stuff and Snowlines and Melty, you could fit a D on the double letter and make it didst. And so he could play eared, EARD, and didst, and actually score pretty well. It does leave a really bad leave of EOO. This is a word, I believe, right? Rowy's a noun. So I don't know about this one though, because now he's leaving himself a vowel trouble, and he must not have seen rodeo. I can't imagine, because it just, funny enough, he has it almost set up. He has the ADEO set up left over. But yeah, I would have preferred rodeo just to score better. You are opening up, an R in spade, to end in an R for an 8-letter word, but. And Josh, of course, finally, he's, his rack is too good. He's going to bingo. He could do greatest or something.
Yeah, greatest very likely to come down as the greatest play available here. And yeah, I feel like if you're not going to play rodeo, which scores 30 points for David, admittedly, opening up an R at the top of the board might not be what he wants to do. I feel like Roue doesn't really do that much to address any threats on the board for David. I would definitely be looking to go for a few more points or try to make a play that's a little more successfully defensive. I guess it does a little bit block the A of Auk, and maybe sometimes you block something ending in OR or AR or something like that. But there were probably other things he could have done that were a little more defensive. And now Josh gets his bingo. And let me update the scores so that you can all see he is now up by 1 point. So we've got ourselves a game once again, 307 to 306. And a lot is going to hinge on Josh's next draw, just because David's tiles are pretty flexible, and he's definitely going to have something to do with his J. Maybe he has something better than that spot, but 40-ish points are coming quickly, and a horrendous draw for Josh, Sam.
Yeah, wow. Two V's and two U's. I know you had the video about when was it UVV was the winning draw for Dave Wiegand, but I think the point of that video is that UVV is not usually a winning draw, and certainly W and double V. Yeah. Yeah, and just to, I guess, not to put too fine a point on it, but for David could have just played doe, a deer, on top of Fooey, making op and F, and would have scored like a few more points. And I don't think the D is any better to keep than the R. So yeah, I'm not, maybe an improvements, but he also might have wanted to play the clock game a bit and try to time pressure Josh. And if Josh didn't have a bingo, maybe he falls further behind. David's setting up that nice hook on Auk to make Jock. So this is scores 43 points. He could also just, I might just play Joe over Snowlines, because Caulk is also valid. CAUK. It's like, I think it's just a weird spelling of like Caulk with an L.
Yeah.
And so if he plays Joe at the bottom, he's scoring really well, and then he's keeping that C. Maybe he can, at the very least, he can play like Dance, or maybe something even better there next turn. So, this is fine. But, it's a little like, you're making a nice hook. It's a little like, flashier, you could say, because, and you're making a nice 5-letter word, Cajon or Cajon or something. But yeah, maybe just the simple Joe in two directions, I kind of prefer.
Yeah, I think the thinking behind just playing the J and only a small number of tiles is that David would have kept 5 good bingo tiles on his rack, as you said, Sam, with the C in it. I think he has a pretty good chance, maybe a surprisingly good chance, of landing a knockout blow of a bingo. The C being by far the best bingo tile, I believe, that hooks Auk. So a lot of times he is going to hit a bingo that scores very well with a hook in that spot and really potentially end the game. But it is hard to fault him for this play, which scores very well, uses that nice hook. He still is in very, very good shape. And Josh essentially forced, and he makes a good decision here to make this play quickly. He can't feel good leaving the 2 U's, but there isn't really that much else worth considering other than Viva in one spot or another, Sam.
Yeah, you talked yesterday, I believe, about the tendency, or you or your partner talked about the tendency to, among sort of newer players or more maybe amateur, quote unquote, players to be so worried about opening up a triple word score. I can certainly say, my grandfather, who taught me Scrabble, he was like this, and he would never play Viva, because how can you give a triple word score? But it is the right play. This isn't, it looks like the right play to me. Yes, you could give something back, and he does give something back, but David was going to score well with this rack regardless. So I think Josh, yeah, that was a good decision, and he's going to be rewarded for it, because those U's have proved quite useful, because there was a Q lurking. And here's another play that should come down pretty instantly. He has quite another obscurity, and he is going to score 72 points with this one and retake the lead. So he's managed to dig himself out of that seemingly really bad rack, and he's done quite well to do so. On the other hand, David, had that great kind of nucleus that he kind of got rid of with Kajan, getting rid of the CAN. And now he's found some constant trouble, and this should be a pretty tight end game.
Yeah, it's crazy that Josh is wriggling out of what appeared to be an extremely grim situation. Viva leaving RRU. Rarely does the Q come to save the day in Scrabble, but certainly if you're holding multiple U's on your rack, that Q could quickly go from the customary albatross that we find it to be in tournament Scrabble into a saving grace. That is exactly what happened for him there. And he basically, that is, it's a 5-letter Q word, but for all intents and purposes, it might as well be a bingo here, scoring 72 points, exactly what Josh needed. And I don't really think there was a great way for David to have avoided that. I think Vex was a very, very logical play on his part, and I don't think he had any real options in that area of the board that could have saved him from the damage that he just incurred. So now he's going to have a very difficult decision on his hands with all those consonants. He does have the Y, but now it just feels like there are no really good spots on the board. There's no triple word scores accessible via a scoring play. The only way you could hit one would be a bingo ending in G, which he does have IN on his rack, Sam. Maybe, I don't think it's that desperate for him just yet, but it's possible he's going to try to prioritize keeping those 2 tiles on his rack. Maybe something like Fry, as weird as that looks, could be warranted just to keep the outside chance of being able to use this, knowing that there are no ends unseen to him. So it's going to be much tougher for Josh to make use of that spot.
That's really interesting. That looks like a good idea. There's a lot of vowels left, right? There's 8 more vowels, slightly, 1 more vowel than consonants, when, the bag starts with more consonants than vowels. So, which is what he wants for a play like Fry, that he could, there's several things it looks like that he could hit. He could hit building, he could hit bielding, BIELDing, bridling, and bardling. So yeah, that kind of looks interesting when you don't have much else kind of going on, and there's not a ton of
high point. So he's going to go with a similar idea here. Phi. Maybe he's worried about opening up that triple word. The problem with this is, it's a lot more likely that he's going to draw at least, he's likely to draw at least one consonant, possibly draws two vowels. But if he draws a consonant, it might be tough for him to get that bingo down. I guess he could bridging or something. It's possible he'll hit a bingo here. But yeah, he's drawn a 7-letter word, but there's not going to be anywhere for that, unless I'd be surprised if Josh opens up for that. And so yeah, I think Fry might have been a good idea. Just an improvement. Just there's nothing huge Josh could have really hit on that triple word score, making, let's say, F, EF off the F. So yeah, it's gonna be a tough pre-end game for Josh. There's still 6 tiles in the bag, and now he's under 4 minutes. Although
we gotta shout out another play, Sam, which is Yibo through the E and O right here, which in fact, as we see David spots his homeless 7-letter bingo, Yibo with the same 2-tile draw from the bag, David would be threatening drafting right now into the G. So there is a potential missed opportunity there. That leave, which after Yibo, the leave would have been something like FINDR. So having whatever the draw was out of the bag there be precisely what he needed to hit one of many plays, right? So I think the leave would have been FRIND. So with that leave, you could hit drafting, drifting, and maybe those are the 2 main ones you're going for. Hurler is going to be Josh's play. I do feel like, as scary as this looks to open that triple, Josh is trailing and he needs to score points. It feels a little crazy to open the triple in this way, but it's actually maybe deceptively difficult with no S's left to pluralize with I should say, not shushing you. But this might be not as easy as it looks to play a bingo, and Josh really, really needs those points here, trailing by 8 going into this turn. What do you think of that? It looks counterintuitive, but might be correct.
Maybe. I'd be nervous. That bag looked really good. I mean, it's still on the screen. It's just there. That bag looked really good for bingos. So you're kind of saying to David, okay, you have your one shot right now to hit a bingo. And there was only one E. There were 2 A's to go on top of the H. So yeah, you're kind of leaving it up to, chance, or to the chance of David having drawn a 7-letter word. But you also might think maybe David's a little consonant heavy. Maybe he doesn't have the E. And so, it looks like a good play. I might have considered other options that didn't open up like that, like maybe Quire, QUIRE. These points, now it kind of looks like very difficult. There's one in the bag, 5 minutes left for David Whitley. And we see the benefit of Hurler because he doesn't have the bingo, and it's like, how's he going to win this game? He's going to need to.
Fishing the B definitely could, from his perspective. Drawing an E gives you the chance to draw D train or something like that. But I feel like Josh should be able to block that under pressure, and unfortunately, it doesn't quite fit up here. Anti-red, trained, D trained, none of them quite work in 2 spots. But if I'm David, I'm definitely feeling like fishing one tile and keeping my eye in order to play here. If I could just draw something with multiple anagrams, one of which plays here and one of which plays here, I'm going to win the game, right? So he has, maybe it's not realistic that he has any plays, but I would be sitting there thinking, God, maybe I can hit something here.
Yeah, the problem is, like you said, I mean, let's say you fish the B, you draw the E, you have to, you need something that fits in 2 spots, and it's going to be kind of tough to find something that's going to fit in 2 spots. I don't see it. I mean, there might be something. I'd also consider, I agree that's a consideration, but if that's not working, maybe there's a way to score well on this turn, and if you draw the right tile, you're going to be guaranteed to go out next turn. And maybe that'll be enough to just get you over the finish line. Like, let's say you do Bran at the top, making and new. I guess it's only 25, so you're actually still down by 1 point, but you keep DIT, and let's say you draw the E, so now you're going to have edit, making Chi to go out, and it might not be enough, and maybe Josh can score enough, and you're going to go. You could also go out with like Tide under the B that you've just put out there for Bran. So basically trying to go out in 2 and trying to sort of pick the letters in the bag that are going to let you go out in 2. The A would also work because then you would have a dit in the same spot with Chi, and then also Ditta under the B. And I'm not sure if that's enough. Okay, so there is one. So I see it mentioned in the chat an example of the type of fish that you were looking for.
Fish the N. Yes, fishing the N, of course. Nice. That's crazy to think that if you fish the N wherever it is, it almost doesn't matter where you play that N. I guess you could play it here, right? So red bait, if you were to draw, you would have to fish the N and draw the E, which it looks like David has instead fished the B, which feels logical, but it doesn't actually fit anything that plays in 2 spots the way, as I was going to say, red bait plays here and tri-bait plays up here. So that is very, very clever and would lead to basically an auto win for him if he were to draw the E, which was 2 out of 8 from his perspective there. So either way, the G was in the bag, so it is a moot point. But yeah, that's definitely very slick to come up with that play, Sam.
Yeah, that would have been nice. The G was in the bag. Yeah, it would have been. I'm not sure he could have won at all, just given the G was in the bag and he didn't have that many vowels. And you kind of need vowels to make scoring plays, especially if you're trying to go out first. So I think the way with the G left in the bag, he was going to be in trouble. And now Josh, as long as he doesn't open up a spot for darting or trading, he should kind of not coast, but he should be able to, win pretty easily as long as he makes like valid words. So yeah, like Telia, he's setting up Telia, and this is going to be a nice play with probably, I assume, at the top, scoring the triple word, and now he's shuffling around to elite, which I guess it's in the same spot. So yeah, as long as he put something valid down in the next like 30-40 seconds, because any of these plays is going to go out for him, next, like elite, even if it gives something back, it'll go out for him. He has AI, so that'll go out.
Just here. Yeah, just here with the Q, get some good points with that. So I think he's just checking, double checking, triple checking. What is my tracking? Am I giving up if I play elite, which at first glance looks scary to open this potential bingo lane? But given David's precise tiles of darting or trading, it is not a threat worth worrying about, as Josh has the lead. He would play elite for 20 points. David, the best he could do would be to play something like grand or grind underneath here. And then Josh would go out and easily win without much fuss. So he does need to not go overtime, I feel. So I think he needs to, he's got to make a play. Good job by him. That is the best engine approved play for him. So nicely done to spot that. And no hope here for David in what has turned out to be an extremely good game, Sam. Yeah,
very entertaining. Been a lot of close. Well, yes, there's been a bunch of close, good games. At least certainly in the Collins. Yesterday morning, I know games 2 and 3 were very exciting. Can't even remember game 1 already. And this is another good one. So also a good suggestion from Nadapat in the chat. I already forgot about that didst. He had the D again, David. So last term when he fished the B, he could have fit dab, making any, and putting the D with didst. So maybe that would have been enough also, because that scores really well. That would have scored over 30 points. So
At this point, it's he could try darting and delight with that like misspelling of the word delight, but he's just gonna have to end the game. Maybe play something like grind or, an ed. But
So yeah, grind set up on the rack there. It's going to go down. That is also David's best play. Of course, when you have an engine approved best play that winds up losing the game anyway, sometimes you're going to look further down the list for plays that maybe they aren't technically approved by the engine, but maybe they create a more challenging play or win condition for your opponent to find. And if they find that, then yeah, you are going to lose by more, but you have a more practical chance of actually winning. I don't feel like there was any play like that available for David here. And we are going to have a final score of Josh Castellano winning this game 475 to David Whitley's 449. So, man, this was not looking good. You can go back in the mid game here, Sam. Even after the phony play by David and Josh playing bonk, which maybe we thought should have been bink, and then David plays dosed and Josh has to exchange 5, and David goes up by 80 in the mid game. It was looking pretty grim, but he found a way to get it done. Maybe we'll cut to overhead mic and see what the players are saying.
Right? I think it's like 95%.
When can you play?
95%? I'm like 95.
Wait.
So when I played bonk,
How are you going to play bonk?
No, just underneath.
Oh, down there.
So I have a spot, and otherwise this just destroys the board. And then I had to fish, and then it was. It's the judge's bench, right? Okay, it's a bench. Yeah, I should have when I played bonk.
Oh, I see. Being through the eye.
I have this and this.
I know the definition of this word.
It's easy street. But I played bonk, and then you play this, and it's like
I saw. I'm going to come to regret this, but maybe I was going to get the ESD bingo, and then
What should have playing one in the bag? I missed
the last one in the bag was it.
Wait for the B. Okay.
Yeah.
There was a fun discussion in the chat about that.
this is a word too, right?
Is that one? Yeah. 90. Yeah.
Oh, I was really like I was.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure at all. That's why I took forever on that.
So people in the chat were saying instead of fishing the B, fish the N.
Was that
Because tri-bait and red bait, 2 spots.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah. I was running out of time, and I'm not.
Yeah.
Wait,
Tri-bait and red.
Tri-bait.
Oh, red bait.
Red bait.
Yeah.
It was. I was really close to getting
Yeah. The actual bag was the G, right? Yeah, it's the G.
I mean, I actually loved Vex because like a lot of 2-vowel draws, you can be breeding or braiding.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Breading.
I really did not want to play hurler, but I was down 8, and
Yeah,
it was really good, so I had no choice.
It was great that
I
it
hope you
left
didn't
one in the
bingo.
bag.
Yeah, that's another big reason why I played it. Like, okay.
I had a bingo, but it didn't fit. I had Antbird.
Oh, nice. Oh, wow, that just yeah.
That was fun. At least, you know what? I have just like completely muffed so many stream games.
Oh,
it was nice to play one that was really, it was mostly okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dosed would have been better instead of. What I liked about that is that does take so many hooks, and I need to get rid of that. And then
this when you put the S on Owie, it only takes RTY.
I just was not even thinking because I was already ready for all the hooks of Owie and didn't stop to think which ones were.
All right, maybe we cut back to us here. That was a lot of interesting intel there, Sam. So David saying he was thinking about the hooks to Owie, but didn't recalibrate once that S hook came down, and maybe that was the source, because I really feel like if you were to ask him, is this good, and have him think about it for a second, he wouldn't have gone ahead there. That was a huge turning point in this game.
Yeah, that's probably if you had to pick one key play, that's the key play when you lose your turn in the middle of the game. And when you look at the end of the game and there's a 26-point spread. So yeah, if he had, managed to get that fee out off his rack earlier, but yeah, a lot of interesting points, Josh not being, I hadn't even thought about that. He might not be sure of the word bank. That's how often it's the case. You're trying to think why'd they do something, but it's maybe you just weren't sure of the validity of the word. There's a lot of words out there. So even though he knows, like you pointed out in the chat, he knows that it's a judge's bench, but he couldn't, someone couldn't pull the trigger on the validity, and it made things a lot tougher for him. But there were a lot of interesting turns, a lot of like small decisions that could have changed things. But yeah, that Dowie's kind of sequence where he pluralized Owie and then he lost his turn later. That's probably the one he would want to have back, I would think. It just, one turn closer to getting your rack out of trouble.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the judge's bench comment, that's hilarious that he correctly remembered the definition. But I guess in just a moment of unsureness, that was also a big swing in the game. But he was able to overcome what might have been a more constricted board and get a huge win in this game, as Josh Castellano now moves into first place in the Collins division with a 7-1 record. But again, this is round 8 of what is going to be a 31 game tournament, Sam. It is definitely a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. So that's a great point. I think, day one, it's a little early to be, scoreboard watching too much because it's so early that really you still have time to make up for it. I mean, after like day 2, once you get to a certain point, we know that the winner likely will, can only take so many losses basically. But day 1, anyone could turn it around. And so what are your takeaways from day 1 from a full, you were there, you commentated on 7 games or you're not there, but what are your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, the games from day 1 were fantastic, incredibly exciting on the whole. I feel like we were spoiled a little bit with very few blowouts and several insane finishes. You alluded to it in the Collins games in the morning. We saw a couple of invalid words that really swung games literally from one player potentially winning to the other player winning, which is always, I mean, we kind of had that in this game, but the game was still hanging in the balance. So it wasn't as cut and dried as it was yesterday, but had a couple Nigel Richards games on the stream, which is very exciting for those of you who are wondering, when is that going to happen today? It's coming in the afternoon block. We are continuing to split coverage between these 2 amazing divisions. And yeah, the afternoon games were pretty exciting as well. Had a couple back and forth contests there. So I would say my main takeaway is that if the games are this good on day 1, when typically it takes a little time for these events to ramp up and for the cream to rise to the top and get those amazing matchups, no delay at this event. We had fantastic matchups from the get-go, and it's only going to get better and better as we continue. So we do have another 2 matchups coming from the Collins division this morning before we take our lunch break. And the next game is going to be a player many of you are probably familiar with, Austin Shin, featured on the stream for the first time, going up against veteran expert player Becky Dyer, who is also doing very well in the standings. Very excited for that game, Sam. I'm sure you have had an opportunity to face off with Austin, or at least get to watch him on stream at some point before.
Yeah, I've played both of them for a few times. Austin more, I think. Austin, I did well against him at that Crescent City Cup. That him and his kind of extended family, his wife Lindsay and her mother Lila K. Crotty organized, and so I did well against him, and then he saw me later with his kids. He said, you boo that man because he did really well against me. He beat me, by over 100 points twice in New Orleans. So, but actually, Austin does have a good record against me. He's beaten me several times at like the SPC or the formerly, the national championship, and so obviously a very strong player from London, or originally, previous from London, but now lives in New Orleans and is, as I mentioned, married to another Scrabble player. Going to have a Scrabble children, I believe. Scrabble playing that. So
those kids are on the way up to be great, all ages Scrabble players. They're already, Leah and Penny Shin are already very, very strong players at extremely young age. No surprise with Austin and Lindsay around to guide them. So yeah, Austin, one of the few players to hold national titles in both the UK and the US. In fact, I believe the only player with that distinction, and Becky, a very, very solid player in her own right. So we are going to take a quick break to get set. It shouldn't be more than just a couple minutes before we are back with round 9 here. So don't go anywhere. Austin Shin and Becky Dyer coming up shortly at the 2025 World Cup. All right, break over. We are back. Austin and Becky are seated and ready to go, waiting for our signal, which we can give them at any time here. And Austin getting the word that he can begin. And here we go, Sam. We're in round 9. I feel like Austin at 4-4, you can never count him out. He has his slogan. Is it on his shirt? I think this is a scoring never stops shirt. Oh, no, it's not. It's something else. But that is his catchphrase, and with good reason. He is relentless as a player. He knows so many words, is able to score well with them. And I feel like it goes beyond that, where he is just never, you cannot count him out no matter how he starts at a tournament.
Yeah, you have that great video about Austin's spirit as a player. That was something I feel like Wellington really showed that yesterday in his win. Like, I was so impressed with the way he came back from his deficit. It was very just clever and crafty and coming up with, options that other people would not have thought of. Certainly when you're talking about an invalid word, options that are very difficult to think of. So here it looks like Wura he's setting up is a pretty standard play. This is an interjection, so it could see a bit of a word knowledge check for both of them. It doesn't take an S, but there are related words that I think it's like a type of fish that does take an S. So this, however, this takes an H, which turns it into a fish, which is a noun. So that's something, which is also confusing because Wura can be spelled W-H-I-R-R-A. And that's an interjection. So we've got that pair of sixes. So if someone tries an H or an S, that'll be interesting to see if that comes up.
Yes. So to translate, so Sam is spot on with everything he said. And now, wow, look at that draw for Austin. He has aquifers through the R. He's going to bingo amazingly with the Q and an F, unless Becky finds a way to block it. And it seems like Wazoo is going to come down unless she pivots away from that. Actually, her initial play, Sam, of Uzo would get the job done for her. So if she goes back to that, she had it set up on her rack. She can't possibly know that she has to block the R's. That is totally biased in, like in the booth omniscience thinking, but she would be able to escape her fate of getting bingoed on. And she might achieve that anyway with her play of Zooey here, which scores very, very well, 37 points. Can't really fault this play either.
Yeah, this is a nice play. I mean, this probably, this or Uzo, probably better than Wazoo. I think especially Uzo. I really like Uzo to get rid of. I mean, it does set up a big scoring spot, but you get rid of the 2 O's and the U. So that would have been nice. She hasn't hit her clock yet. I don't know what, maybe she's just reconsidering, and now she's pressed her clock, so ending her turn. And yes, aquifer in the Collins lexicon can be spelled in this, to me, bizarre manner of A-Q-U-A-F-E-R rather than, usually I believe it's A-Q-U-I-F-E-R. But in any chance, Austin, he could still play it, actually. It's aquifer, keeping ES is, might not be a bad play. In fact, might be his best play. Otherwise, he could consider maybe holding on to the QU. It doesn't look like there's anywhere good for just like qua or aqua.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if not aquifer, then what? If you're Austin, he clearly sees it and he had his hopes dashed to be able to bingo with it. But there doesn't really feel like there's another good way to use the Q here. So if you're not going to play aquifer, which looks like a very good play here, would you just play FE or something and try to draw into a bigger play here, which doesn't really feel that realistic? I really feel like just going ahead, and I guess you could play, I don't know. I mean, is it worth playing like FA right here, leaving a very balanced leave with the QU and the S as well as an E? That could be on the table. He goes ahead and plays aquifer. I really don't have a huge quibble with this one, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, the engine does seem to have a slight preference for that fa option, which, sometimes I think you might have commented on this previously. We see the Q, we want to get rid of the Q, but once you have that U to go with the Q, it can become quite powerful, especially if you have other good tiles. So fa would have kept the board really tight for Becky, and it would have kept that AQUES, which could have done, he could have easily either hit a bingo or another high scoring play. So in any case, not about, it's certainly a fine play. It's, if any, at most a slight inaccuracy or a stylistic decision. And Becky is, well, I'm not sure what she's looking at here. She could play Daring for a double-double, which would be 36 points. It keeps the U, which is unfortunate. But she has grind set up. I don't know. Is she trying to play through the owl or something? I don't know what she's looking at. Oh, she has Daring. I didn't notice that. That's much better, of course. DAURING, also a double-double, which gets rid of the U. So that would be a better play than Daring with 2 R's. And I guess she's going to play
Grind there. Yeah.
Right there, which is a good play.
Yeah, so the 2 plays that Sam pointing out, not the most obvious. DAURING seems to be the standout play here by a fair margin, but that is not the easiest play to feel super confident of the validity. You might know DAUR as a 4-letter word, but unless you are Josh Castellano memorizing the definitions of those words, remembering that you can inflect it with ing is not a slam dunk. So this play is much more quote unquote human, natural play. All the words involved are either 2-letter words or a normal word. So yeah, we probably want to see Dowring there, but it's very reasonable to pass that up in favor of something more sure. And in fact, as some folks are pointing out in the chat, this does achieve the objective of blocking the A of Aquifer, and Austin has to be feeling a little bit snake bitten here because he had this massive bingo get blocked, and now he, for a second time, has what he probably wanted to play, galoshed, get blocked by Becky. So he's got to be thinking, oh my gosh, can I get a bingo down at some point here?
Yeah, and not only through that, but she blocked both A's, right? So he could have bingoed through the top A at Aquifer. So yeah, it's been quite interesting that he's been blocked 2 turns in a row. He could use up his S here and hook Aquifers and get a lot of points for that. And he could just play gels. So all relatively common words there, except for Aquifer is basically misspelled, but O and oil. And so that would be actually a lot of points. And, DH blank, DH isn't like a normal bingo leave, but when you have a blank, you can kind of tolerate a lot of leaves because the blank will allow you to bingo really well going forward. And then beyond gels, I guess, there's other good plays. That he does have that H for Wura. I'm not sure this is the right time to use it. If he plays gels, he could hook that H.
That is a huge upside of the gels play that you are suggesting, Sam, because Wura, as you were saying earlier, this is an adjective, does not hook with an S. It does hook with an H, which in this position, the H and the blank together, the H is arguably functioning kind of like an S normally would. It's giving you the ability to, whenever you draw a bingo containing an H in it using that blank, it's going to fit here. So the S becomes a little more expendable and the H becomes a better tile to keep, all of which makes me feel like gels is a very, very strong play here. I would say, though, that there is another cool option of geoid right here. If you really want to go crazy, this scores 7 fewer points, but you keep both the S and the H, which really, really improves your ability to get a 7-letter bingo down on a subsequent turn. A lot of different options here. Either of those feel like fantastic choices for Austin. And I feel like if I'm guessing, he's probably identified both of those as options, but knowing Austin and his word knowledge, he's probably spending a little bit of time looking through AR, UN, and AD for really, really amazing 9-letter words that he probably would see if they were available. It just so happens that none of them are. So he's looking hard for those flashy plays, which would be so cool to see. And I do think he's going to default to one or the other of those two options we've identified here.
He's not even that far off from looking through the chi for Ching Hao Su, since he has the GH blank. But in any case, yeah, that's a good point, that he's looking for nines, and which I hadn't thought about. But yeah, in addition to, sevens, maybe through the A, Zuya hooks with an E and L and an S. So he could play something like lag, which would keep perhaps the strongest of bingo leave of any of the plays we've discussed. And like a computer engine thinks gels, geoid, lag, this seems to have them relatively in the same ballpark, along with other plays. So I think anything like that would be fine.
Yeah, agreed. So I do worry a little. I think Austin in general is very comfortable playing at a relatively fast clip, but he spent a lot of time here. So I do feel like it's one of those situations where would a play like gels even be that much worse than a lot of the bingos that he might be playing, especially through AR or UN? Probably not. Really, the only thing that would be unequivocally better than the play of gels would be a double-double through the AD. That seems like, yeah, it would be better. So at a certain point, you kind of have to cut bait and save that time and trust that if you're not seeing anything huge through the AR, UN, and AD, got to save that time for what could easily be similarly difficult decisions later on.
Yeah, and I know there was a bit of a discussion of the time management yesterday morning, like with Wellington. I think you're talking about with Heidi Robertson, how he can use the clock and maybe use it as a weapon, and so he'll speed up, right? This could be a type of situation. If I'm Becky, I might suspect Austin has the blank if he takes like 7 minutes. He's been taking several minutes, at least 5 minutes on this. This might be a good time to really have your play ready. You're sitting there. You got to think of something, right? You got to do something. So kind of try to be ready to go, right? Like, have some of your options ready, like Genie Eye, it's been pointed out at the top of the board. She's got her EIU separated. I wonder if she's thinking of exchanging them, or maybe just because she doesn't, those are the worst 3 tiles. I mean, if she were to exchange, that would be what she would want to exchange, but I don't think that it would be warranted. So, she doesn't have that many good options, honestly. So she could be idea. That might be what she's thinking. But after Austin thinks for like 7 minutes, I would not want to play idea and open up a huge spot for an S bingo that could go as a double-double. And also an X hook. Now Austin's finally shuffled. He's finally given up, it looks like, on bingoing. And he's considering gels probably. And it's a good point as well, that if it weren't for those double-double possibilities, gels is almost as good as a bingo play, like a 70-pointer.
Yeah, I think just with the, the DH blank combo and the Wura hook is just such it's hard to see that getting blocked almost ever, just because, again, you've got this whole area of the board that's going to be attracting Becky's attention. It feels like she's going to play in that area a huge percentage of the time, leaving you free to land almost all of the 7-letter bingos you could possibly draw with that hook. And even if you somehow can't fit it with that hook, you're pretty likely to play something here anyway. So bingo odds are fantastic. I am curious to see, as you suggest, Sam, is she going to exchange those tiles, or is she going to go ahead and play something to the G And meanwhile, the DH blank combination for Austin, he just feels so snake bitten. We were talking about it actually off stream that Austin, as phenomenal of a player as he is, appears to just be in a bit of a slump on the stream in terms of his draws and his timing. He just has had a couple of games consecutively on the live stream where it has very little to do with his own play. He's just drawing frustratingly, and this game appears to be starting that way as well, with multiple bingos getting blocked in kind of improbable fashion. And now his chances of bingoing had to have been fantastic, but a terrible draw setting him back. My heart kind of goes out to him here, as Becky does appear to be exchanging. Sam, I think we might slightly favor her playing something here.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about Becky as much. I haven't played her as many times, I don't think, as Austin. Becky's from the Austin area, actually. She lives in Austin, Texas, and is retired in the last few years, very involved with the Collins Coalition and organization, has a really good word knowledge. Speaking of word knowledge, there's that H-hook. So Austin making basically the only play that's better than exchanging here was to hook that H onto Wara and play nth, and it's a good way to, get rid of that double H. Yeah, Beck, I would classify that exchange. I feel that's a mistake to exchange there. She could have played Genii for 18 points and kept ERU, and it seems like a lot to sacrifice 18 points there when Genii doesn't really open up anything too worrisome. Or Gurney, even GIRNIE, it's kind of an obscure word, but she probably knows it.
Yeah, those are definitely solid options. I'm not going to sit here and say exchanging EIU was a horrendous error. Definitely wasn't. I think it's kind of, close-ish, a small to medium size inaccuracy. Nothing crazy. Becky is still in decent condition. It feels like with Austin struggling with his draws so much, I feel as if we're talking about his game as if he's somehow getting crushed, he's losing the game, but he's actually in fantastic position here. He's up by 40 points and has the first blank in hand. So on a board that isn't very good to score on for Becky, which when you have the lead, that's a good thing. You don't want your opponent scoring a lot of points. So I do feel like I personally need to pump the brakes a little bit on the doom and gloom for Austin. He's in good shape here, and I'm sure he still feels, despite wishing that he could have gotten some bingos down early, he's doing okay. So on Becky's side, though, I feel like she's got a really cool play here if she thinks of it. On that top part of the board, Sam, a couple different ways to go. You could play off of this G with any number of things, but there is a cool option that I'm curious if she's going to see.
Yeah, good point. I think, Austin's letters have not been worse than Becky's, really. I mean, Austin hasn't had an S. He says the blank. He had the Q and the U together, which scored nicely. So, yeah, I mean, it's true. Like, he's kind of gotten unlucky in a certain sense of getting blocked. But, yeah, so Becky, the first thing you want to look at, especially with double N's, is that N hook on Chi, right? And so when I'm looking at this, I say I'm going to put that N on Chi, make Chin, and then how can I go vertically? So I'm going to start a word with an I or an O, and then, well, what's she doing? She's just playing EN?
Ooh, okay.
No. So this is not a good play. I mean, the problem with this is that she's basically setting up Austin to make a play on the top row, and now he can hook EN and get extra points, right? So if he goes GE, GR, GH, which he actually has the H, but he doesn't have a word unless he uses his blank. It's probably, it pointed out in the chat, so the play to make was to put her O where she put her E, to make arrow, ARO, and then she could have done ion. So ion would have been done like everything she wanted it to.
Yeah.
Hit the triple word, scored way better, and kept her E, which of course is the best vowel for, in general. And as we can see, now she's got another O, and now she can't bingo, whereas if she had, played ion, she probably
well, I don't know if it would have fit anywhere, but she would have had a better rack. So yeah, that's tough. A-row is a new word. Like it just was added, I think, at the beginning of the year. So it's, with those new words, it can take a long time to kind of see them like reliably, and a lot of practice to see them reliably. So now she's probably going to be able to use the spot for herself because Austin played defund, and now she can hook rend.
Yeah, Austin played defund, which was pretty solidly his best choice, dumping a bunch of those consonants, the F, both Ds, keeping the H, which hend is a word. So this is kind of cool to be able to follow up with a GH play if you're able to draw one. And in fact, he's thinking about playing ghastly if he doesn't have anything better up there. But of course, Becky is going to beat him to the punch. She is going to play, looks like, groin. That seems pretty reasonable. It's between this or groan, and I think groin is significantly more difficult to score well with in this spot. The I really only can take the F in this spot, which both of those are on the board. So placing an I there, way better than the A. If you were to replace that, you're looking at a lot of high-scoring consonants that now fit under there. So I think that was a savvy choice by Becky. And now Austin has another. I just worry a lot about his time here, Sam. And he has one and only one playable bingo, and it is an extremely difficult find.
Yeah. So I did not know this word. Wow. That's so, yeah. And it's also one of these situations. I mean, he's used up half of his clock, right? He's just at the 12:30 mark. So half of the 25 minutes, and look at the board. I mean, there's more than half of the game to go easily. So, 56 tiles are in the bag. And 7 on his rack too. So yeah, if you don't see a bingo here quickly, I might just say, just put something down. It's not going to be a huge error here to like play something else. He could just drop his Y on that double word with phi and yod, and he's going to probably bingo next turn. And that's probably not that. I mean, it is worse for sure. The bingo is the best play, but this is where you kind of want to start, preserving time as much as you can. And the bingo. So new word to me from the N is Nathless.
Yeah,
N-A-Y-T-H.
Yeah, Nathless. I'm sure it is some kind of extremely archaic form of nevertheless.
Here it comes.
Oh my God, crazy.
Yeah, there's other spelling. So NWL or WoW has had NATHLESS, Nathless, which for a while, and so there's a few different spellings of this. This is maybe one of the weirder looking ones for nevertheless. A wonderful find, just showing off his word knowledge and his play finding ability. Becky calmly writing the score down because showing off her word knowledge as well, that she surely knows this word. So I mean, if you can find the word in 2 minutes, then I guess it's worth it.
It is worth noting, though, Sam, that just plopping the Y down here had a lot of merit, right? Like that scores very well. You leave a fantastic bingo leave with an S in it. If you have any doubt of finding a bingo here, just plopping that Y for 30 plus would have been pretty good. And in fact, it would have worked decently here, as Becky now has an opportunity to bingo with osteoma. Nice find by her. I'm not sure that would have gone down anywhere prior to Austin's bingo. Not saying that he's somehow wrong to play the bingo, only saying that plopping the Y down by itself was definitely on the table as an option for him there. So players trading bingos here. The fireworks finally coming. Both players getting their first bingo of the game down. But Austin still in decent shape, up by 26 and on turn. But Becky could easily draw something really good here and seize control of the game. Let's see what she plucks from the bag.
Yeah, another close game, at least halfway through. I'm running a simulation. It does seem to, well, yeah, it seems just dropping that Y does seem to be preferred, which does surprise me because it's a 46-point sacrifice, and it didn't look like there's huge spots to bingo, but so I'm not sure about that. And we would have had a word knowledge check on Wuras because Becky could have, hooked. It's pointed out in the chat that she could have played Osteoma with Wuras had Austin not bingoed, but instead.
I think I know why. I think I know why it likes that, just dropping the Y, Sam. It's because with almost any vowel, like if you draw an A or an E with that leave that Austin would have had, you're getting athletas, altheas, you're getting all kinds of stuff off of this A that scored very, very well. But maybe that's, those plays all open the board so widely, whereas Austin's bingo actually doesn't open the board that much. It's kind of a nice way to get your bingo down without opening a ton. It just so happens that Becky had a bingo that wouldn't have otherwise fit, but there were plenty of racks that she could have had that would also not have played after Austin's bingo. So as I think about it more and more, I do kind of like going ahead and playing the bingo while you have it, to say nothing about the practical situation of every turn that you keep the blank is going to leech more and more time off your clock. So you might as well go ahead and play that bingo when you see it, because Austin's time is in a little bit of a dire situation. He is well below half of his clock with about half of the game left to play or more. So yeah, maybe half-ish of the game left. So I'm kind of liking his choice more and more as I think about it.
Yeah, I agree. Practically speaking, like using up 7 letters instead of 1, you're just trying to get to the end. Sometimes when the clock gets low, like that can be a factor. Try to use more tiles because you're so low on time. Yeah, here he has Devout, which would use more tiles, but it's not like a great play. I mean, I think this would just go with just with a lot. Oh no, with Lou and Est. I guess that's fine. I mean, he could have made Wood, W-U-D, which would have scored better and would have kept Vote, which isn't a terrible leave, but this is fine also. He took another 2 minutes to play it. I mean, he doesn't have 2 minutes for every move anymore, right? He's going to have more than like 4 moves to go. So he's going to.
Yeah, there is like a Scrabble axiom, Sam, of like whenever you can play Wood, it's like that's what you should play, right? Like the getting rid of WU is such a high priority. I'm not sure. I mean, it looks kind of nice to play that here. I can't really quibble with Devout that much. It scores 2 fewer points and keeps a lone W, which feels like that can go south for you a little bit more often than keeping the nicely balanced VOET. But again, I think it's really close, and maybe it is just better to play Devout and reach into the bag a little bit harder to try to get that last S and blank. You get some upside there with Austin's choice. So it's far from cut and dry. I could easily see this working out better a lot of the time, and maybe it's just the best play. So meanwhile, Becky, yikes. The good draw that we were postulating was what she needed to seize control of the game hasn't really happened. She did draw the last S, that with the aforementioned final S. So that's really good because now she can sort of reason that this hook is very likely to benefit her. But tough situation. Oh, look at this. Just key here, setting up ski. I don't know if this is the right play right now, Sam, but I do feel like this has a lot of long-term merit, even if it's not correct, strictly speaking, right now.
Yeah, oh my gosh, she's tripping.
Wow.
So Becky has drawn. I just have to say now, this obscure, ridiculous spelling of some word, Aries, Aieries. which is a very useful Scrabble word because, you know, if you have these letters, if you don't know that word, then you're, you know, fishing off some letters for like 10 points or whatever. So yeah, key, going back to the actual decision, I think it's interesting. I like the creativity of it, to set yourself up. I do think, you know, I think a more patient approach was probably warranted. You know, EEIIS is not going to mature into a bingo very quickly most of the time. But, you know, and, you know, Austin, it just gives Austin time to just block it. Whereas you could kind of groom your rack with EIK, and, you know, get rid of an E, which wasn't, you know, that duplicates wasn't helping you. But yeah, she's rearranging, and as long as well, I hope she
this would be tragic if she didn't see. Oh no, she was able to connect on her bingo. If this crazy play of Aries with all those vowels, oh my God, it's like she made this sequence manifesting the word. It would be sad for her to not see it here. And I feel like I do worry, as I've been saying, when you don't see that word immediately, the odds with each passing second that you're going to find it. Yes, as you said, Sam, it is possible to sort of, for people that are not like me and have spent hundreds of hours studying the dictionary and I want to see my words instantaneously. Not everybody is like that. Not everybody is as big a nerd as I am, and you need to look at it a little longer. But I'm very worried right now that she's not thinking about that she could possibly have a bingo with all those vowels, and she really could use to play it right here.
Yeah, it even fits nicely, not just hooking osteoma, but actually, yeah, as you're about to draw out there, thanks, with all these nice parallel 2-letter words. It was pointed out in the chat she could have done on the last move, oik, O-I-K, she's missing it. So serious. Yeah, this was kind of her, I mean, this was like the big chance. I mean, you know, she could draw bingo next turn. This game's far from over. But, you know, Austin's going to have a big, like, jam at the minimum, just parallel to osteoma. That's going to score well.
Or jaw.
Well, but that makes wa.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah, but, well, he could do jaw at the top left.
Jaw here.
Fun, but,
yeah.
But it wouldn't score as well.
Yeah, jam looks great. Sorry about that. You're right.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I was just thinking, you know, there's a blank left. She almost would have been better to wait to pick it, but you know, she could have been. Oh, the X, that's going to be huge, though. The X is going to give her something big.
Alexines.
Oh my, that's gosh, 120 points or something. I mean, that's a lot. So that's a game changer.
Yeah, that's a huge swing. So jam for 45 coming down for Austin, and Becky, if she spots it, sometimes that's the way it works in Scrabble. Not every mistake actually hurts your winning chances. Of course, drawing X blank will mask a lot. So that's definitely part of it here. But I like Becky's odds of seeing this if she thinks about it. Of course, she is now going to play indexes or, you know, Xines or Rexines or something like that right here. But the extra points for getting the X on this square going across are critical. She can get 116 points here. And that is going to be a gut punch to Austin if she spots it. So big swing here. Will she get 80 points? Almost certainly. Will she get 116 points? We'll find out.
Yeah, she's shuffling. I think she's probably looking in that spot, I'm guessing, but, you know, doesn't have it yet.
I hope she's not thinking about accenites with an E,
gosh.
Sam.
Instead of an I.
Yeah, accenites would be a devastating play. Austin is going to challenge that. It is not a valid word. Let's hope she thinks better of it. I feel like that might be what she's considering here. And that, as she's reaching for the blank slip.
Yeah. And she, you know, Becky does have a really
no.
excellent word knowledge. You know, she's, and this is just, it's a tough mistake. Yeah, Austin will challenge this. It's, you know, it's a misspelling. It's unlike aquifer, this word has to be spelled AXINITE, right? So, which is some sort of scientific related word. So yeah, she's gonna have another chance to bingo next turn, but now Austin's gonna have a chance to
It
take out that
creates
Alexians. Yeah.
Yeah, this creates a brutal situation for Austin, I might add, because normally, as you can see, he has Weep lined up right here as they're going to adjudicate the word. You're going to see that X. Very tough break for Becky. That was her big chance. Austin would normally play Weep here, Sam, for a great score, 44 points. But will he go ahead with that and risk Becky finding her 116-point bingo the second time around? That is a really tricky choice to make. If he decides to block the big 100-point bomb, he is going to have to sacrifice a humongous number of points to do it.
He might honestly just let her have. I mean, the problem is she has like rec signs or rec scenes or indexes, like indexes and jams. That's like 84 points anyway. So, you know, you don't want to sacrifice 20, 30 points to just to save 20, 30 points when she might not see it. She just missed it.
Yeah.
And then there's another A. There's two A's, right? So she could even play it down from the A in Wara. Let's say you block it, you block the bottom left, but you'd want to kind of block everything. So you kind of want to block, like you kind of want to start a word under the ut and kaput, like go horizontal. Well, no, that doesn't block Alexians though. So you could play like Pango and take out a bunch of stuff.
As you say though, Sam, if you're suggesting that she's much likelier to spot her bingos here, maybe a play like that is warranted. You sacrifice a few points, but you reduce her as long as she doesn't spot the massive play. Yeah, you could regret it hugely if you sacrifice, 15 odd points to play here and block indexes and things of that nature. But Austin's going to go ahead and just take his 44 points, which I think that makes the most sense practically. If you give Becky any credit at all to find Alexians, which I feel like she definitely knows that word, I almost feel like if you turned that blank into a real L, she would see it. But because it's a blank, it can sometimes escape your notice. That's definitely what I'm thinking is happening here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm running a simulation with the her rack specified, and it does. Well, it's quite interesting.
Is there anything it prefer? Yeah, is there some like little play down from the U or something that it might prefer?
Well, I guess you could play like unpeg. That's
Yeah.
didn't even show up. Anyway, but you could play. He also could play Gaupen under the ut and kaput. Which would have been a nice play, GOWPEN. But Weep is a good play. I like it. It's practical. There's not that much time, and you just want to put the clock back to her and make her struggle with the same rack that she just. I mean, oftentimes when someone plays a phony, I mean, even if they know the word, they might not see the word. Yeah, and this is exactly that case. I would say it's kind of in my experience, this happens more often. Is they're just not going to see it the second time around. It's, you think if they were going to see it, they might have seen it the first time. So she's going to play rec signs or rec scenes, which is her second best play, I think, if you don't see the word elect signs or elect scenes.
Yeah, I think this is a play that she's going to be 100% confident in the validity of, which is kind of important psychologically. Once you lose a challenge, you definitely are less likely to go for words that you have any possible doubt in. So Austin, probably not surprised to see this. guessing that Austin probably was aware of the Alexine's possibility and was just crossing his fingers, hoping to not get hit with all of that extra damage. Let me get both scores updated. I apologize for that. The score is currently, there we go. That's updated. Austin's points for Weep are in there, and then Becky's 85 points for Rexine. So you can see Austin still in very, very good shape here. Moreover, Sam, there are 4 tiles in the bag, so that allows Austin to play 3 tiles through this eye with something like Verl, and basically know that he should pretty much be okay almost no matter what.
Yeah, I mean the pool is really weak, and so if you play something like Verl, you know, she just, even if she bingoed, it probably wouldn't be enough. And it's very unlikely she would have a bingo. I guess something like Coutil is in there, Coutile. But Verl looks like, or maybe he has Bing set up or something. Something like that does seem like a pretty safe play. It seems hard to imagine, unless there's some massive bingo like that you're giving up to the triple word, like starting with, you know, the L that you put out there, an 8-letter word. It's hard to imagine losing it at that point.
Yep. So Bing is the play. Maybe putting this G here is a little bit safer than putting the L after Verl. I feel like those 2 plays are probably pretty close. In general, you would look to shed the V almost no matter what, but might be called for here. And yeah, you can see with 1 tile in the bag, Becky is going to have a very difficult time coming up with anything to even fish for. The board is so stopped up. So yeah, it's going to be Austin's game. He's going to break his streak of tough games on the live stream, although it certainly looked like this one was shaping up to be another frustrating game for Austin. Got to give him huge credit for his find of Nathless with a blank E. That is extremely high level anagramming, Sam.
Yeah, definitely. You know, kudos and credit to Austin. And also just mention, you know, I'm not sure, you know, Austin, of course, has a lot of experience on these live streams, you know, several years, you know, with the national championship in Collins and many tournaments, World Cup and lots of different tournaments. I'm not sure how often Becky's been on the live stream. I'm sure she's been on before, but, you know, it's nerve-wracking, I think, especially in like your kind of the first game of some of the first times you're on it. And I guess my experience has been, you know, I've been on a few times at the same tournament, the first or second games, I'm quite nervous to have my play broadcast. And so, you know, it's tough. And I think, you know, for, you know, Austin, you have that advantage of having a lot of experience of it. And once you've been on a few times, I think you settle down more. And so it's, I just want to mention, you know, some of them, you know, like the word knowledge with Axonites, you know, I don't know if, you know, if she would, you know, do that at another non-streamed game. So it's just something to be aware of. But yeah, it's like, it's over at this point. I mean, the win-loss is decided, and she's going to hook Joey, which is a nice playing like Lay or Bay, it looks like she's going to do. And that's a nice way to score a bunch of points. So that's probably what I would do here as well. That looks like what she's looking at. I mean, you do give back a triple word to Austin, like he might have Curly, CURLI or something, but
Vitro.
Oh, he's Vitro, yeah. So that's going to score well. So maybe don't use your Y yet. Maybe, I mean, it's academic, you know, it's just for spread, right? But you know, so maybe save your Y in reserve and try to score well elsewhere. Or, I'm not sure what the exact most, you know, optimal is.
I guess you don't technically have to play your Y right now if you're Becky, because that spot is so difficult. It's so unlikely to be blocked, or so difficult to be blocked by any kind of productive play by Austin. Your Y also plays here nicely as well. So keeping it, you basically are guaranteed to get a nice play in the end game, whereas this does expose you to something nice. Austin just has his pick essentially of whatever play he wants in that spot, which I feel like Vitro is, or I guess Volti, depending on what the other letters accomplish on the board. He'll be able to figure that out. But yeah, as you say, all academic. I totally agree with your comments about being on stream, and it is something that is a acquired skill for sure. I think back to my first game ever on the stream. It was way back in over a decade ago. I can't remember. I think, well, I do remember exactly. I think it was against Jason Keller, who was doing well at the Nationals. And in particular, what I remember is literally spending 10 minutes early game with a blank on my rack, scared that I was going to miss a bingo in my first ever game on the live stream. It turned out that I did miss a bingo. I missed the bingo of custardy with a blank Y, but the play I made was actually the better simming play anyway. So I wasted 10 minutes of my clock just out of fear of looking stupid, and lost the game due to time pressure later on. So that was a great formative experience for me. And I think it really shows that, you know, it can play tricks on you. You can do things you wouldn't normally do that might, you know, that you would just be aghast at afterwards. At least that's what I felt after my first time on the stream. It's not Becky's first time on stream, but Austin is a veteran who's been on there scores of times at this point. So there is, you know, that to think about as well. But the nice thing, I think, is that every time Becky is going to be on, she's going to get more and more comfortable. And she did make a number of great plays in this game in between some of those moves that we would want to take back for her. And yeah, so just didn't go her way in this game, as now she needs to come up with whatever the best end game play that she can find is. It looks like it's Lino right here through the N of Bing, after which Austin is going to have an easy time going out with his UNT.
Yep, well said. I've had similar experiences being streamed. Yeah, it looks like he missed Vitra, or maybe wasn't sure of it or something, so he played liver, which is fine. Yeah, I want to say, I'm curious what you think of the suggestion in the chat from earlier. You know, I want to get in on the Nigel glazing, because, you know, I'm only doing the Collins commentary, but obviously that's like a big thing. So someone has suggested, you know, now that Nigel, you know, he's, you know, 5-time world champion in English, 5 or something time, you know, US North American champion, Spanish, French. So someone said, well, he should just play both divisions at the same time. He could go back and forth, and he'll go walk over the Collins and the WoW. So he'll walk back and forth, and he'll play, he'll play his Collins game and his WoW game simultaneously. What do you think? Do you think we should ask Nigel? Would that be a good challenge for him?
To compete in both divisions simultaneously? Yeah. That would be fun. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I kind of have done that from time to time when I used to stream a little bit more. I would definitely play one lexicon and then switch to the other. So, you know, I don't know how long I will retain that skill. So, yeah, Lino, good play, blocking ton, as was pointed out. So now it turns out the best play for Austin is actually tubing for 9 points. If he sees that, kudos to him. Otherwise, there's simpler plays like Rut that will finish the game. But yeah, the lexicon thing. And for those asking about Nigel, we do have our plan set. Obviously, the game between Nigel and Joey K, I'm sure is going to be fantastic. But we're going to get to watch Dave Wiegand, who is a multi-time North American champion, play in his game next. So that is something that we can celebrate as well. I love watching Dave Wiegand play. I've made a couple videos about him, and Nigel is very likely going to be coming at least once and probably several times this afternoon. That's just how we have it broken down. And we definitely expect to show plenty of Nigel. This is a stream for the entire community, and it's fun for players to get to be on stream. So you got to remember, if we show Nigel every time, it means that fewer players get the experience of being on the stream, which I think definitely matters. So I hear everybody's concerns, but that is how we are going to proceed. We're going to stick with Collins in the mornings and WoW in the afternoons, and be flexible on the final day, where we very well may have somebody trying to chase Nigel down in the standings. Unless if he keeps going at this current clip, Sam, he's 9-0 right now. So we need some WoW players to continue to chase him down, hand him a few losses, and keep things interesting over there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to do some scoreboard watching. I mean, Joey had a good start yesterday as well. Only, no losses, just one tie. So there's hopefully some kind of level of competition for him at the tournament.
So Rut to play for Austin, finishing things off. That brings him to a final score of 450 to 383, a much needed win for him. Nobody should be surprised if Austin makes his way into the top of the standings. He really is pretty relentless. As I mentioned, very difficult to get off his game with bad drawing or bad timing or anything like that. So an interesting game here between these two. Couple missed opportunities you could point to for Becky. But we'll have one more game coming up shortly. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure if we want to cut to the overhead mic, which might involve some frustrating realizations or looking upwards for Becky here. Why don't we just keep it in the booth for now? And so the next game is going to be Dave Wiegand versus Chris Lipe. And Sam, we saw Chris in game 2 put forth a great performance against Wellington Jighere until the very final moment when disaster struck.
Yeah, that was quite a game. I was very entertained by that game. Chris, he's the president of WESPA, I believe, and he's finished second at the World Championship. So very strong player. I think you commented, it's like maybe it was you that you said you always have a tough time against Chris. Like I'm the same way. I always have a very tough time against Chris. Like I don't know. I don't have a good record against. I have a bad record against him. And so, but Wellington, wow, really, I was really just wowed by Wellington's play, and he kind of put the pressure on and he just applied pressure all game and kind of stole that win away, right? So I'm sure that was a really tough game for Chris, obviously, to lose a game in that fashion, with on your last play, really, or you're, making a phony word with no tiles left in the bag when a valid word would have won is tough, obviously. And, I think it'll be interesting to see how he rebounds today. The fact that he's on the stream means must have a decent record, or a pretty good record, I would think.
Let's see here. It looks like he's 5-3, and Dave Wiegand 6-2. Of course, that does not reflect the results from the previous round, but it means the two of them are still hanging around right at the top of the standings. So this definitely is a top board game from the Collins division. And Dave Wiegand, I hate to use this label for him, definitely one of the best players in the world to not yet have won a world championship. I think nobody would be surprised if one of these years he brings it home. He has been extremely close a number of times, either in the finals, and I think I remember him playing Nigel in a finals and drawing absolute garbage, and just really having no chance from the get-go. I remember other years where he narrowly missed the bracket in the finals and things like that. So, Dave is a phenomenal player. And there we see Chris getting set. I guess maybe we do not have to cut to break, I suppose, assuming we're all set to go. Sam, how are you doing? How's your stamina here as we get into game 3?
Sounds good. It's only, I've got to get my stamina going because next week I'm going to my first kind of major or national level tournament in 8 years, actually, at the SPC in Baltimore, in the Maryland. So,
I better be able to commentate, just, sit here and talk for 3 games worth if I'm going to be able to play 31 games worth. Yeah, good to go.
Cool. So I think there's no need to delay. We're getting the names reset. I will reset the scores as well. Let me just make sure we're saving all of these games for posterity. It was Austin versus Becky. And we will get set with a new game. Dave going first in this one. I would say, Sam, that maybe behind Nigel Richards, Dave might be the player who knows the most words of anyone in the world. Would you say that's possible for him?
Yeah, that's definitely possible. I would say so. Actually, yeah, maybe even more than, I guess David Eldar is probably up there, given that he's kind of, I think, made a project of, really learning the 9-letter words. But you might have a better sense of it than I do. It seems that way to me. He's certainly never, though I am still proud of that one time 15, 12 years ago or whatever, I challenged a 9 off against him. He was bluffing me, of course.
Wow.
So he seemed to know that it was a phony. But I'm not sure, other than David Eldar, maybe. I don't know who else would even kind of be in that tier.
Yeah, was this the exact matchup where the video you mentioned where Dave draws UUV? I think Chris was the actual opponent in that game. So Chris has been on my channel a couple times now. I've had a game that he played with Natalie Zolti from the MGI tournament that was incredible. That game between him and Dr. Bing, that's our nickname for Dave Wiegand, as they're going to square tiles and get going. I feel like I need to have a pro Chris video on my channel. So maybe he's going to do something in this game that earns him a ticket to being broken down on the Wanderer 15 YouTube channel. And if not, as I mentioned yesterday, he has had some crazy wins against me, including bingoing out on me with a 10-letter word through GOR. He played allegorist to beat me. That could easily be a game for the channel. So Chris, a great, great player in his own right. No bonally. He has learned he cannot play bonally, so we will not see that in this game, and he should be good to go to play a fantastic game with Dave Wiegand going first. Let's see what he draws.
Yeah,
he's got a great shirt. Look at his shirt, Sam. Look at this Chris shirt. What is even going on?
Yeah, here? I mean, Chris definitely has his own style when it comes to fashion, and he is demonstrating that. He loves like My Little Pony. I don't know if that's like brony. He's a brony or something.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is like a related shirt. So I don't know. I'll leave that to the fashionistas. But Dave is a nice rack to think about, because to nothing. I don't see the immediate. Oh well, like he has Zach. I didn't notice Zach. I guess that's a good play. He could also play Need. Well, he's going to go with Zach very quickly. I guess he could just play Need, KNEED. Yeah, the interesting thing about that, there
lots E, yeah.
It slots the E for Z or Z-E. Oh, and what is Chris? Oh, feel it.
I was wondering if he's going to try this. It's not a word. It's going to get challenged. So no, we are not going to get very far into the game without Chris going for the gusto. This is very plausible, and you can easily see this potentially being a word, right? Like, oh, this material is feelable or something like that. But Dave is going to challenge this 10 times out of 10. There's no way Dave will let this stay on the board, and off it comes.
Dave waiting 20 seconds to challenge for maximum psychological impact on Chris, to make it seem like this is a word he's just only has a little bit of doubt on, Yeah. I guess we could try to use feelable. Well, I shouldn't say that. He's made some interesting phonies in the last 2 games, but this is one. It's like, if you see this and you think it might be valid,
I don't really fault him so much for trying. I mean, obviously you don't want to try phonies and Collins. Like you're very much incentivized to like not try them, but it might be one where you kind of see it immediately and you think, if you kind of feel like it's a word, then you might feel like, oh, I have to take the risk to score, 100 points or at the start or whatever, 90 something points, especially when you're playing Dave Wiegand, such a strong opponent. So I kind of get it. And, if this isn't valid, then what else is he going to be doing? He's going to be playing, I don't know, Leaf or whatever for 25 points.
Well, Befall would have been pretty nice.
Oh, okay. That's
so.
Okay. Never mind. Yeah,
there is
would have
that.
been a lot better.
But you want to have the respect for your own game, right? If I'm Chris, I've played in a World Championship finals before. I am an excellent player that's, well capable of defeating Dave, but I also want to, like, if there's any chance that I could start the game off with a, 80 to 90 point bingo, that seems plausible and could easily be a word. I'm going to take it as Dave plays heh underneath there. This is kind of nice if Dave was thinking about what could he, what could Chris actually do on the Zek post-Zek board. He probably saw Befall and now realizes that this play leaves Chris with significantly fewer options than he had before, although that's not really true. He has Beflee now. So that's still pretty good. Chris just going to play BEL, which is a slight point sacrifice to that. But yeah, Beflee probably the star play just on the basis of scoring so many points. But at least it feels like Chris has not inadvertently given a spot back to Dave to play crooned, which is a 7-letter word he has on his rack right now.
Yeah, interesting sequence. The engine really seems to love if you plug in Chris's rack, since Dave knew Chris's rack, it seemed to really like just playing leaving that H off, and then keeping that CH, you're keeping dench for next turn, and then Beflee would have been much less powerful, of course. So a bit of a rush turn for Chris. If I think he might be. I guess I shouldn't speculate as to his mental state, but at least myself, when I make a big mistake on the stream and then make another mistake, I'd get frustrated. I think there's a chance of frustration, and it's maybe a little bit of a rush turn because Beflee is a really nice play. But Bell's fine, and
it's hard enough to see Beflee on your own rack, let alone on your opponent's rack too. And honestly, I do feel like the turns where we were talking about the blank potentially being the tile that causes you to sort of bleed the most time off of your clock, but really the actual situation that causes you to lose the most time is when your opponent plays a phony, and it's your job to try to make the best play given the tiles that you just saw, especially if it was a phony bingo and you see all 7 of their tiles. Those turns can go from simple to extremely complicated in a hurry. And I guess the best thing you could say about Dave playing heh is that he was able to play it really fast and not burn a ton of time. Maybe there were ways to escape that a little bit more efficiently, but I can't really fault it. And Chris playing Bell sort of confirmed that he took the right tack here. But Chris is going to bomb his X here, Sam, and it's still going to be very close with Dave's weak draw.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good point. It's Dave is not going to score well on this next turn. And another good point, really. It was a very practical play, and when your opponent plays a phony and exposes their rack, so you're not playing Nigel Richards. Like, it's a chance they might not see every possibility. And like you said, it was a very practical play, and playing it so quickly is it has worked out. And and Chris didn't see that very, very difficult, I would say, word of Beflee, Beflea. So. Yeah, Dave now with, the overload of 5 vowels to 2 consonants. And I don't know what he's going to do here. He's, yeah, he's got the O for okay, but what can he play there? Row? I mean, that seems really, nothing looks very palatable. I mean, this board is really with the C out there with Codon, that right angle with Zek and Zell. There's not. I mean, box. You could hook him with a Y. There's if you that S. If you have a bingo with an S, that'd be great. You could score a lot with Zeks. Otherwise, there's not much going on this board.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal.
Chris does have one. I just look up and I see Chris's Olestra.
Yeah.
Estral.
He's sitting in great position, probably reasoning that there's almost no way Dave can find a block of his bingo hooking Zeks here. What could he even do? It would need to be very specific. If he doesn't have an O, this is completely inaccessible anyway. And even if he does, a lot of the plays that Dave will make forming okay are still going to allow all bingos with an S to fit, unless it's a word that doesn't pluralize. Not that many words fit that bill. So Chris is probably thinking to himself, I'm a huge favorite to bingo next turn, and my early attempt of feelable is going to be ancient history in this game. As for Dave, as you suggest, Sam, row is basically the best word that he can put on the board. It seems just barely worth playing. I do feel like exchanges are also very, very much in play. And if I did exchange, I wouldn't necessarily try to fixate that hard on keeping a really good bingo leave. I would probably try to exchange maybe more tiles than usual in order to try to get that all-important S, or maybe a couple of the key hooks like a T or a Y or something that actually let me play productively on the board.
Yeah, I agree. Usually I'm more likely to kind of feel that people are exchanging too many tiles and should kind of keep more things to balance the rack. But I completely agree that in this case, trading down to like an ER or something to me looks good. I wouldn't trade all 7. It's just, you want to keep a little bit of a nucleus of, ER is useful generally.
That's what I had in mind. I would consider ER here. That feels like a nice, you keep one vowel, one consonant, but you really want to try to max your chance of drawing an S or some of those other key tiles. So I'm agreeing with you on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So I'm not sure if maybe he's just deciding between an exchange or like row, or it's been suggested in the chat you could do Rona, although that just opens up a triple word, so and a double. So I don't know that he'd. He knows Chris still has AEL, so he knows probably some sort of bingo tiles. Yeah, a simulation seems to think row and trading down to like earn or EAR look about equivalent. I didn't plug in trading down to just ER, I don't think.
Yeah, let me see what it likes about that. So, and Dave's taking his time here. Look at the clocks, in fact, and Chris is going to, there we go. Oh, he exchanges down to just an E. I think that is probably a lot of his reasoning was that there really is no need to fixate on a really normally good bingo leave. You got to try to get some of that stuff, and Oestral is going to come down in a hurry. So Chris is going to lose very, very, very little time off of the clock, and Dave's replenishment draw contains basically none of what he wanted whatsoever, Sam. Ouch.
Yeah, that's like a bad draw. Yeah, I like that, Chris. I personally like to, it's like when your opponent takes like 5-6 minutes and then exchanges, like you should have your play ready to go. Because sometimes I found myself zoning out, and then it's like I still have to think for a couple. It's like, no, if they exchange, you should be prepared for that. It's been 5 minutes, so good for him for moving on. And maybe Dave has another hard decision and falls behind. And yeah, he's got really this kind of awkward set of letters, and I don't know what to do. Maybe Gallia. Like something like GALEA, sticks out to me as like a, just score a little bit, get rid of like your duplicates. But I doubt there's anything great on this board. It's not like there's a bunch of big openings. Estral is nice because it kind of doesn't really open up too much.
Yeah, very much so. It's hard to hook. It doesn't hook. It doesn't really give very good lanes back to Dave. So definitely a good choice by Chris, who also didn't draw great letters on his own. So we're going to see some slogging here, but I promise you all, there are some good tiles in the bag that eventually the players are going to draw, even after they work their way through all of this dreck. There's going to be some S's. There's going to be some blanks. Eventually, they're coming.
Yeah. Not sure what he's looking at here. But yeah, they'll slog their way through. They'll find good plays to get rid of their duplicates, and
it says a lot that the engine likes Gallier right here for 18 points, leaving CO. I feel like Dave has that lined up. He might opt to leave the extra E off in the odds of catching Chris without a hook to that word. And then maybe Dave will be able to play his E hook on a subsequent turn. That is what he's doing, which seems very reasonable. Also creates a little bit of a hook test, in fact, of do you also know that this word takes an S, and do you know that it does not take an L? There's a couple hook, tests available to Chris now. I think Chris is likely to know that stuff, but the only reason I mention it is that there's a very similar word. If you replace this G with a P, that is also a valid word that takes an E and L as hooks. So Galia taking an E and an S as hooks. So you could easily see a little bit of confusion between these words, whereas I really feel like Dave knows them pretty well. I wonder if Dave would ever try an L hook. I doubt it.
Oh, I mean, unless he needed it, like filing yesterday, but probably not. Yeah. That's probably what I mean, it's like, I said Gallia pretty quickly. I saw that play, and then I probably would have done what Dave did, which is spend 2 minutes looking around, seeing if there's something better, and then just playing it after you couldn't find anything better because there wasn't anything else available. Chris does have that Y for boxy, which is still, the board hasn't really opened up that much. So he could play like Yoni there, hooking with GI. That might be, at least AAI, which, runs a risk of being, of having too many vowels next turn, but it's certainly worth it for 27 points. He doesn't have a ton of great options for using up more vowels, really. He'd have to sacrifice points like Ngaio. I don't know how to say that word, NGAIO, but that leaves a really bad AIY leave. So I think Yoni, the X is gone, so putting that O over the triple letter it's just not that risky because there's nothing that could hit you that hard there. And even if it did hit you hard, you're getting the triple word score on the bottom row back. So Yoni looks good.
Yeah,
looks as well as you can do.
This is a weird looking play. It's so weird because you are sort of actively not hitting any good bonus squares. So it feels weird that this would be the way to score the most points that you can get here. So I do feel like that's a tricky play to generate. But once you do figure it out, that actually gets you 27, as you suggest, there is not as much risk of opening this square with the X already on the board. And if Dave were to play in that spot, you will often get counterplay along the lower triple. A lot to recommend it. Only blemish is the 3 vowels, and there I believe Chris has now spotted it. You can see it lined up on the rack, which is very good play finding from him. And down it goes. Nice job by him to spot that one here, which I think is a little bit tricky, but as I think Sam and I are agreeing, that's got to be the play here.
Yeah, it's another kind of tightish. Well, I guess no, Chris has a good sized lead now at this point. Dave, not through really any fault of Dave's. He's done everything right, I think. Or
no major mistakes certainly.
Yeah, the only quibble with Dave was we were talking a little bit in the chat with codon versus just con, right? Like there was some possibility of, yeah, you don't have an eye on that turn. So playing con, giving up the icon hook feels a little weird. But playing codon instead did allow Chris to score way better, if I could actually circle accurately, to get his X bomb down. So maybe the tighter play would have worked out slightly better for Dave on that turn, which we didn't really mention because action was proceeding very quickly at that time. But yeah, that's a real hair splitter. And rarely do you see Dave make a mistake that rises to the level beyond a hair splitter. That's how accurate and good of a player he is. So tricky turn for him now where he can go a couple different directions, Sam. He probably knows the weird odd 6-letter word Maleic. He could play that right here for a good score, or he could just dump his O right here, which actually gives him decent chances of drawing into a bingo a couple different words with some of the key tiles available, such as camellia or maybe simelia with another I. Not sure where that latter one is actually playing necessarily, but could be reasonable to dump off an O if you feel like your bingo odds are pretty good. That leave of malice really does become a lot of stuff with consonants as well, with the E hook available for Gallia.
Yeah, I think the problem is with that O fish, it's like, the computer likes it, but the problem is Chris is going to react to that. And, if I see that, I'm blocking Gallier. I'm going to sacrifice a good amount to block the Gallier hook and, row 14 to some extent, which, by the way, he doesn't, his bingos might not fit, or really. I mean, he doesn't have an S, so it might be tough for him to fit his bingos on row 14 or hooking anywhere but Gallier.
Yeah, I personally, for the reason you describe, I do maybe prefer Maleic here for Dave, even though he really needs a bingo and fishing his O would yield a lot of them more often. I feel like Chris will respond in ways that the computer simulation is not expecting after just a fish of one tile. It turns out, though, that Chris's rack is so weird right now. Oh, and there we go. We're going to see Mo is the play by Dave. So I wonder how much bingo percentage he gives up by tacking his M on with this play. Surely it's a little bit, but maybe this doesn't look quite as red alert to Chris to play defense afterwards. I'm not sure how I would read this. If I'm Chris, I guess I still kind of read it as very threatening.
But it could be, I mean, not necessarily though. Like I do like this more than just dumping an O, just because you could have a range of things. I mean, you could just have, yeah, maybe it is kind of threatening, but maybe there's you have some sort of weird rack where you're trying to dump, you have a couple O's or something, and you don't have a great bingo lead, but an okay bingo lead. Maybe he didn't see Maleic. I mean, that's a hard word to see.
Very.
A 6-letter adjective, just weird, the EIC combination. So definitely a tough play. By the way, I do agree with that earlier point about codon. He knew Chris's leave was leaf. And so, codon did kind of open up some stuff for like a F going underneath, making of, but anyway, and Chris didn't have an I, didn't keep an I. But Chris, meanwhile, this is a clear spot for that Collins only word of Aya, A-I-A, and it looks like he's just going to plop it right under Gallia for, it's just 10 points, but he's keeping quite a good bingo leave. He's very, very likely to bingo next turn. Although it's, again, tough to fit a bingo, he's probably going to have to make the blink an S. So maybe it's not going to be so easy to bingo unless he maybe finds an 8 into the C.
Yeah, the thing about Aya that I like is that it looks at first glance like, why would you do this? You know, making a hook. But actually, that hook was already available with Galia. You could put an S on this. You can put an S on this. So that doesn't change. But Aya blocks the E hook here, which is significantly more flexible. So this play has a good amount of defensive merit against bingos. There are going to be cases, though, where Dave now has an overlap that plays along here that he might not have normally. But remember, Dave's previous play was just Mo, M-O. That makes his odds of having good scoring tiles much lower than usual, or else he would have tried to play them on his previous turn. So I think the play of Aya for Chris does a lot of good things, and the downside risk of it is less than usual given the game scenario. And Dave responds by playing Aguila. I'm very interested. Why that over Agile, Sam?
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't know. It's showing off his vocabulary. I thought he was playing Agile for sure.
But just keeping
that.
keeping CEEI instead of ACEI, which just feels like, why would you not keep that nice balanced combination? Maybe Dave just didn't think about it. I would always defer to him that he almost certainly has a reason for his choices. But then again, we're all human, and you know, it could have just been an oversight. So I would reserve judgment until hearing from him what his reasoning was for that. Maybe his reasoning was, I don't want to put an E out in an open space after Chris just played a short word that looks a little bit bingo prone. Maybe the A, a little bit harder to land a bingo that goes all the way across the board. I don't think that's quite enough to get me to keep the slightly inferior leave. But maybe that could have been on his mind.
Yeah, the only thing I can think, and again, I'm kind of stretching for an explanation here, but it is a little defense. It's more defensive in that way, and also Chris just played 2 A's, so you might suspect Chris has a third one, which he in fact did. And so in that sense, I mean, if we look at Chris's leave of A, I, D blank, of course it's going to combine much better with an open E than an open A. So it was more defensive, but you know, Dave's losing in this game. So, you know, I would have, you know, I think I probably would prefer, I would think slightly, but prefer to keep an E, to keep an AE instead of double E's, especially because like there's not even that many A's to redraw. And there's a lot more E's. You know, he easily could have drawn more E's. So anyway, Chris is playing Dolly. I haven't looked at how do you, I haven't looked at his play. How do you feel about this?
Seems reasonable. Either Delhi or Dolly in that spot. Oddly, 18 points apiece. Unless you want to burn the blank, which players at this level are not going to be doing unless you're getting a whole lot more points than Chris can. That looks like actually the highest score that he had available, which says a lot about how tricky the position was, but it is going to yield. I don't think this is an argument against Chris's play, but Dave is going to quickly play ejects for 58 points, leaving just an I to get very, very close on the scoreboard again. But look at Chris's draw, Sam. Finally, I guess we're going to see a bingo. Although, is it possible that that Chris should, it might be the case that unless Chris can play a really careful, not that open bingo, which may be difficult on this board. If you think about where are the bingos going to fit, they're going to fit here, which gives a triple back, and they're going to fit here, which gives a triple back. Chris might have incentive to just play get here and be very patient and wait for an opportunity to play a bingo that's not so dangerous. That would require crazy patience on his part, but it might actually be best.
That would be interesting, actually. I mean, I kind of like that. I mean, you're sacrificing he could score 75 points. So that's like a 55-point sacrifice, which is whopping, you could say. But yeah. I mean, there's also a chance, Dave, it's kind of a close game. Like maybe Dave kind of just like inadvertently opens up a triple or something. Maybe Dave's best play is like under Aya hooking, like parallel under Aya.
Because it might be a little tough to score really well. I mean, what's Dave going to play? He'll play like where, awe and where or something next turn. I mean, okay, that doesn't even look good. Dave might be incentivized to open up the board basically at a certain point. So you could kind of play cat and mouse. I don't know. That does seem. Matthew's pointing out. Yeah, digest that's
the
fine.
standard play is digests, which definitely looks very reasonable to play, and that would be my guess of what Chris will play and what almost any expert would play in this position. But I am tempted by the idea of playing it because with the 2 blanks, there is almost nothing that you can draw that's going to stop you from having bingo options on a subsequent turn. Like it's, the 2 of them together. But there is, again, we've talked about it a few times, Sam, there is a practical issue with that, which is that it's already hard enough to play with 1 blank. You might paint yourself into a corner where you have to make an extremely difficult find with 2 blanks. If you continue to keep them, it's a little bit like playing with fire. Playing them now while you have a chance to do so can sometimes be, you might regret not doing that. So I do feel like what Chris is very likely thinking is, man, I would love to play an 8-letter word off of this A. Amazingly, there isn't anything, but with 2 blanks, certainly in his situation, I would be looking pretty hard for a couple minutes for an 8-letter word starting with A, A, D, A, T, definitely some blank designated letter. It seems like there should be something there. In fact, there isn't. So it's going to take a couple minutes for Chris to work that through. And then by the time he does that, I'm pretty sure he's just going to slap down digests without thinking of anything too creative. And I would support him fully if he does that.
The engine seems to maybe just a very brief simulation, kind of like your idea of Git. I don't, but he's definitely looking from the A, like you said. I think that's the logical place to look. Interestingly, after digest, there's many bingos available, right? He could bingo making Mo's, lots of bingos hooking Aya. It's kind of interesting that it seems to be that the second most after digests, as you draw, was the next preferred bingo is Zigatai, DZIGGET. Going down onto the AI. Oh, Matthew's just said this in the chat. It's because it's so defensive. It's a wonderful word. There's a few different spellings. I believe it's an animal. It's like a boar or an ox or something. And
that's insane.
You can also spell it Chigatai, CHIGETAI, and a few other ways. So that would be. Wow, that would be what a beautiful play, and very defensive.
Hey, Chris Lipe, you want to get on YouTube? You want to get on the Will Anderson YouTube channel as the protagonist? You got one way of doing it right now, and there it is. Zigatai, DZIGGETAI. That would do it. I will guarantee that I will make a Chris Lipe video if he plays that right now. Is that likely to happen? Not very. It's being pointed out in the chat. If Chris isn't careful with where he puts the D tile on his rack, he could give Dave Woundier as a response. So for an example, if he were to play something here, slotting the D out in space, Dave would get a miraculous counter bingo that would be like manna from heaven for him. But I do feel like, the upside of not bingoing now is that the board is terrible, right? So when you bingo here, you get a lot more points, 50 more points, but you are increasing Dave's score by a lot, much of the time. Whereas the board after just playing something like Git is so poor, it's very, very difficult for Dave to even have a theoretical good scoring play anywhere. And then the ideal, if you're Chris, is you then bingo off of this A in a way that gives no counterplay back to Dave. That would be your ideal outcome after not bingoing right now. And oftentimes it's going to work out pretty nicely for you to do that. So again, though, that would take pretty unreal patience and like planning, I guess. I think, as I've said, most of us, Sam, I'm sure you included, would be playing digests here without too much of a qualm.
Yeah, it's also very, I think, like for me, kind of psychologically, you just kind of feel ridiculous, like sacrificing, like to sacrifice 50 points on a play. It's like, unless you're like really confident, but sometimes very unorthodox looking plays can be correct. And I really like Git the more you look at it. I mean, digest is fine. Like it's fine. You're going up by a bingo. It doesn't open up anything massive. I mean, it opens up a triple word, 2 triple words, but is actually not so bad for you because probably you can hit one of them. And no, yeah, the problem. So Doug Ites, and he's gonna get Dave's like, yeah.
Wow.
This is like a did someone say in the chat it's like mana from heaven or something? Dave's seeing that D
I just
is
said
like,
that. I just said that.
oh, you say this? Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's like, yeah, mana from heaven is D. So it's gonna come down instantly.
Yeah, Dave.
How many minutes has he had to stare at this rack?
Oh my God, that's crazy. After all that, Dave is probably like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic.
Oh,
Look at
no.
this. Amazing. The D out in space. Ouch.
Chris
Crazy.
grimaces
Yeah.
as he sees it go down. Especially
I'd be
once
grimacing.
And all of a sudden it's Dave who's actually gonna score more out of this exchange. It's tough. I mean, maybe he didn't see digests. I mean, he had 2 blanks. There's a lot of possibilities.
For sure.
Just because, you're looking at so many different things. Like, just you might not think to make both blanks S's, and I don't know. So yeah, it's not like Doug Ites is like okay. It's just sometimes it can give back bigger bingos. Maybe he preferred this to digests, I guess.
Yeah, I just feel like, yeah, I mean, the digests gives back the S at the base of the board, which isn't that bad because a lot of the good tiles like the Z and the J are already used. And it gives back 7s, right? But a lot of those 7s, maybe some of them have an S in them. All of the S words are very likely to play with IAs already, whereas Doug Ites gives you the D, the U, the G, and the I, all of which are either modest to good bingo tiles to play through. So you're just getting a lot of the same 7s will still play and way more 8s. So I do feel like the immediate response after Doug Ites is going to be worse. But as you said, Sam, finding all of your options with 2 blanks is very, very difficult to do. And it's very difficult to say, oh, it was a huge mistake by Chris. He could easily be benefiting from that choice in certain scenarios. So, like, what if Dave has a bingo ending in S and he plays something here and then Chris draws a big play through the D he just opened? That can definitely happen some of the time. So this was a worst case scenario for sure. Of having a massive, not just bingo, but a bingo with WU in it, Sam. Insane.
Yeah, talk about rescuing the rack. I mean, imagine, if he had played Git, what was Dave going to do? I mean, he had like very little good option. And I mean, honestly, he kind of to your point with the 2 blanks, it's so hard with the blank, and especially 2 blanks, it just costs you so much time. And I think he's kind of, it's hard to say rushed this turn because he saved some turn. So he's preserved some time with Jiff, but he had better plays. Like he had Fuggy and Puggy, or even just Figgy through that G and Doug Ites, which I think would, have kept a better leave. And then, he kept the U and the Y and the P, and they also would have scored more, or at least as much, if not more. So he's going to have to deal with some, I mean, he drew really badly. He drew like IIU, but meanwhile, Dave, as we get low on time on both sides, is dealing with consonants.
Yeah, just the one vowel.
What do you see for him?
This is tough. I mean, after Wound Ear, he's probably feeling great to still be in this game. He's been trailing by seemingly a bingo or more for most of the game. Now, instead of a rack that could help him really keep pace, he's drawn another difficult one where his options really revolve around, is he willing to use up his vowel here, or is he going to try his best to keep it at all costs? Something like twin seems extremely uninspiring, 14 points, but it leaves AMRT. Maybe that's good enough to do. He's going to play Ween instead. I wonder, yeah, Ween versus Where is an interesting choice between the N or the R to play there. I don't really have that
I
strong.
was just going to say there's a bunch of R's in the bag, so and we see that he's drawn
Yeah.
there were 2 N's in the bag, but then there were 3 R's in the bag, so there's a lot of unseen of both of them, and he's drawn another R, which is probably gonna slightly slow him down. Yeah, I don't think no E. Chris isn't going to be throwing an E open to Tremor.
So you're thinking maybe swapping that N out here for an R might have worked out better with all these R's to come in the pool. That's maybe that, again, this is like that hair splitter that we're talking about. If Dave is making mistakes at all, it's very likely to be these type of tiny nuances. But yeah, look at the score of this game and look at Chris's tiles, look at Dave's tiles. I have no clue right now who has the upper hand here, because Chris is about to go up by whatever he scores, or he's about to exchange and get the first crack at the S's and things like that, which there he is. He's going to exchange all but just an I, which normally you would exchange that I, but he has a very low chance of it being duplicated. So that might make some sense. Maybe you keep a consonant there, but Chris is looking at a very imbalanced pool. That's probably why he did that. 7 vowels to 18 consonants. He knows the consonants are coming. So actually, as I think about it, Sam, that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was a great play. I think that was, very well. Actually, I guess I'm not sure what he had like on the board. So I think of the exchanges, that was smart to just keep an eye because of the pool, as you've just explained. I mean, I guess you could have tried to muddle. I don't know. I always try to kind of muddle through as much as I can, like unless it's like horrible.
It looks
situation.
like Yup was basically the best he had, which looks a little bit crazy to do for a couple reasons, right? Like, it's crazy to do not just to play through the P, but underlaps here are devastating a lot of the time. So if Yup is the best play that you can put on the board, exchanging looks pretty good by comparison. So I think it makes sense, and I like the idea of exchanging, leaving just a vowel. Look what he drew. He drew exactly the consonants he expected, and fortunately a U to pair with the Q. So Chris is now in decent shape as Dave plays Merit through the I. That seems decent from a standpoint of points and leave. There isn't actually that much any better, but I worry a little bit about the vowel situation. And oh my God, look at that. Crazy, Sam. Huge swing.
Well, that was what he was hoping for. I mean, he drew SQU to his I. So, that's like, it was kind of the best. It was literally the best thing he could have drawn. I mean, it's probably even, I guess, some sort of huge bingo, but it's almost better than a bingo, because most bingos would like open things up and wouldn't even score that much. So now he's like a massive favorite.
Wow.
So it's worked out perfectly. Yeah, his exchange, I would have said, I want to score my 10 points and keep some crappy lead, but maybe he was right to just exchange and try to go for, try to flip his chances.
Yeah, what's crazy, though, is with so few vowels in the bag, Chris has drawn none of them, depending on what you think about the Y. All of this stuff, the E's, the I's, and the U's, are actually still in the bag, as is the last S. So if Dave is able to do something, like if he plays his normal play, which feels kind of uninspiring, of Vapor here, what if he draws the S and a bunch of vowels? and threatens something here, and Chris basically has nothing to do about it. Even better, what if he threatens something here that doesn't give a triple as easily back? There definitely are very practical chances for Dave here. Maybe he would want to try to keep a vowel. I'm not really sure what he's supposed to play that accomplishes that and also scores a reasonable number of points. Like just playing VOR here feels not ideal. What's he doing here? Trop. Oh, wow. Okay, interesting. Keeping the V. At least he keeps the A along with it, but I didn't think about that one as an option, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, he is setting up another line for his S. So now if he draws a bingo ending in S, well, there's the S, he's guaranteed that it will fit on the board, right? Because he can play with ohms and he can play with ayas. But yeah, so that's the credit for this play, or its merit. But the problem, yeah, I think Vapor, which kind of in a normally doesn't look very good, Vapor, because it kind of looks like you're blocking essentially. But I think Vapor would have, oh wow, Chris has dumped just his
just the Y. Yeah, just the Y by itself for 25. I mean,
I guess
does he even have anything that lets him do much more? I guess he could have played something like BOEP, which at least gets one more tile off the rack. I just want to point out that through some providence, unexplainable providence, Dave is potentially on the verge of drawing UUV or UVV against Chris again to win the game. He is very close to Vesuvian, the word that he played originally. If that happened again, I don't know what I would do. That would be pretty insane.
Yeah, I kind of think Vapor would have been just fine. I mean, you would have, because you score more and you keep a lot better. You keep RT, and now we see he's having trouble kind of, he has the U and the V. Well, Gov, that's a good play. So that looks like a good play. He's getting rid of his U and his V. And now Dave's going to have a very good chance to win this game, depending on, I mean, there's still two E's in the back and an I. So, and a V. So he could easily draw Ravines or something, or Scenari.
He's got very realistic
or
chances
Rainius.
here.
Scenari will fit with Rainius too.
Yeah, for sure. So
he just needs to dodge VI. And I guess, just VI. Is that?
We'll just see.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you manifested it. Oh no. Crazy. So this is very agonizing though for Chris, because if he doesn't empty the bag, it actually gives Dave a chance to fish his V somewhere if he can. There may not be a place that allows him to play it, crazily enough. Dave may be unable to just play the V by itself, which would definitely be what's called for here in his scenario. So imagine if Chris, with two tiles in the bag, what if he says, well, I don't want to empty the bag, and plays off one tile? That could potentially allow Dave to get rid of this V and draw into the unblockable bingos that you describe. Although maybe they are blockable somehow with a play here that would potentially block Rainiest and Scenarii. So even that might not get the job done. But first things first, I don't even know if Dave can dump his his V, I should say, by itself to enable any of that to take place. So this is brutal. Not a lot of time on the clocks either, Sam, to work out what is a very tricky pre-end game, as so many are.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's always very difficult when you're under 4 minutes. You want to have, you were talking yesterday about Nigel, like clockwork, having his 10 minutes for this pre-end game. But I think, what Chris what he wants to realize is that normally you want to not empty the bag. But the reason you don't want to empty the bag is because when your opponent bingos, then you get to score enough to overtake them in the end game. In this case, like you said, it didn't matter. Let's say Dave has a bingo right here. He's going to win. The score, Chris is very unlikely, I think,
to really score enough to make up for it. And Dave's still going to go out first. If we imagine David drawn into a bingo right now, if he had Sonari down with Govs or Ravines coming across with Ohms. So now, there basically wasn't any big point to doing a play like buy, dropping one letter, although he's drawn plunder, it doesn't fit anywhere. But now Dave, you've just kind of given Dave one last opportunity that he wouldn't have had. So if Dave doesn't have a bingo.
So the last tile in the bag is an E. So if Dave fishes an I somewhere that allows him to play Ravines in 2 spots, I'm not sure where that is.
I guess Chris did block Isles. That is one thing that play did. So
yeah,
Chris, that's going to make a huge difference because he can't just fish the V. The V would be, he could consider, right? He can't consider, is there anywhere to just drop a V?
I don't believe so. At least I looked at it before and there was no spot for the V, which is agonizing. But yeah, fishing. Oh, wow. Look at this place to fish the I. That's kind of fun. You could play offie. That's pretty crazy. Dave with only 20 seconds on his clock. He can't go that far over. Unfortunately, I just don't see where he's going to bingo in the second spot. Right? If he plays an I... All right, he's going to play Invar, almost maybe acknowledging that if I just fish an I, it's not going to play my play of Ravines or Avenires. It's not going to play in 2 spots, but maybe there was some cool idea that he had. Any sharp folks out there in the chat want to try to identify one. Yeah, what are you supposed to do to try to steal that one?
I'm a little surprised he didn't. I mean, if you like this, probably Invar is probably technically the best or close to the best play because essentially, it's being pointed out in the chat, technically he didn't have any winning chances, theoretically, or academically, you could say, if you're playing against an engine. But I am a little surprised he didn't just fish an eye somewhere because Chris is 2.5 minutes in his clock. Maybe he screws up. Maybe he mistracked. I mean, that's what I would do. I would just say, hey, you want to beat me? Then if I draw Ravines, you have to block it. You have to make sure you have your tracking on right and then play Pep or whatever.
And don't play Bonally.
Yeah, so exactly. You give your opponent a chance to mess up. You make your opponent earn the win, essentially. So he's kind of acknowledged the loss, and probably it ended up, being good for his spread, you could really. But it's probably the best spread play, but it is, and sometimes you do want to do that. In this case, I would have said, hey, there were different spots on the board, right? There was a spot to start a bingo with an S with Gov, and then end a bingo with an S with Ohms. He kind of, gave up basically with Invar. I think acknowledged that he was lost, and then Chris has pulled out a victory.
Yeah. That's a classic one where with the time so low, and this was definitely an extremely complicated game. It became that way for Dave. So many tricky draws and tricky moves early on. No bingos available for a lot of those early moves. And even though Dave did get that ray of hope from Woundier, he still followed that up with a bunch of racks that were extremely difficult to navigate. So I am just curious if there's any play that wins at all. But as you said, Sam, you might as well, even if there is no play that gives you a sort of ironclad winning chance at the end, why not fish the eye and have some fun and allow him to make a mistake? But this definitely works out better on spread. And with Dave having such a good record, keeping your tiebreaker in order is very worthwhile. So another very interesting game. We were blessed with a whole bunch of them so far, very few blowouts. And this one, thanks to some theatrics in the mid game, was no exception. So, man, it's been a lot of fun, Sam. And let's see. So this win for Chris is definitely a big one for him. That's going to pop him up to 7-3 and drop Dave to 7-3. But David Whitley and Josh Castellano, who we saw play earlier this morning, are either going to be at 7-2 or better. So those are the 4 players right now at the top of the standings. in the Collins division with a whole slew of grandmaster level players behind them. It's always scary to me, Sam, when you look over these crazy divisions and you see incredibly strong players towards the bottom of the standings. It gives me a little bit of the shudders, thinking, how bad are these players drawing? How good is this field if, player X or Y is towards the bottom of the standings?
Yeah, it's always interesting. That's a good point. Josh won his game, so he'll be at 8. David, I think, still playing or hasn't entered his result. Yeah, I mean, like David Whitley, who we saw earlier, he it's a little factoid I got, which is, or trivia. He's finished third at the Nationals, the SPC, and then last year he was near the bottom of the heap at World Cup, and then he's so far on day 2 he's near the top. So yeah, there's a lot of variability, especially this early, right? So give it a day or two, people have a chance to catch back up. But yeah, it's good to see how it seems like a very competitive. We had three quite close games, like endgame games this morning on the stream, and no one running away with it, right? I mean, everyone's got at least 2 losses, maybe only just one player with 2 losses after 10 games, everyone else with like 3 or more possibly. So very, I mean, if you look at them overall, no one's getting wiped out, no one's getting running away with it.
Yeah, perhaps a contrast from the WoW division, which again, what we do at this juncture is we're going to take a lunch break. Unlike yesterday, we're actually going to go ahead and take the stream down for lunch break. So if you are a follower of this channel, hint, hint, you will get a notification when we go live again for the afternoon session. I also am going to be releasing a video during the break, so hopefully that gets some people watching, and then I will link to the stream, of course, in the contents or the comments, I should say, and the video description as well. So you can look forward to that if you're looking to do something during lunch break. But just want to also, not neglect to plug the 2 amazing organizations that are responsible for the Word Cup year in, year out now. This 2025 edition coming to you from St. Louis, Missouri. And those 2 you see at the bottom of your screen: Word Game Players Organization, WGPO, and the Collins Coalition, working together to deliver a fantastic event that we are just fortunate to be in the booth and watch all of the action. So much effort goes behind the scenes to make not just this stream, but the entire tournament a reality. So yeah, if you're thinking about what you're seeing, the level of play at these live streams is very, very high. But rest assured, if you're watching this and thinking to yourself, how can I get involved, but I'm a little scared? Do I have to play that well? No, definitely not. There are players at every level, and definitely encourage you to visit the websites for those organizations, which I believe are just WGPO or wordgameplayers.org for WGPO, and cocoscrabble.org for the Collins Coalition. Lots of great information and resources available for you there. So, wow, 10 games in, Sam. You were talking about it being, it's a little premature to draw too many conclusions from the standings, but we're literally not even technically a third of the way through the event, which is pretty crazy when you think about how much Scrabble we've seen already.
Yeah, it's it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And we've seen over the years, right? Like they're legendary stories. People, there's in Scrabble history of people starting out really poorly and then they rise their way up and make their way all the way back through huge fields. And so, I mean, look at the WoW, where you have someone 10-0 plus 11-17. His name is Nigel Richards. He's come all the way from Malaysia, and look at him. He's but I'm sure by the end he'll probably fall back somewhere in the low end of the pack. You never know, but anyone can compete. Anything can happen. So
a true underdog story, that guy. I very few know of him. This guy Nigel Richards, I think is how you say it. Yeah, so that's
he's a French player, right?
It must be. He's won the French championship after all. So yeah. So what we're gonna do at this time is we're gonna first of all thank Sam very much. Let's put some love for Sam in the chat. Thank you very much for joining me for the morning block of Collins. And yeah, we're gonna take our lunch, both commentators and players, and we're gonna come back in a little bit longer than an hour and a half. We are going to resume our coverage of the WGPO official words, the WOW lexicon. If you're familiar with North American lexicon play, you're basically, that's what you're getting in that division for those curious. And yes, we are very likely to feature some Nigel Richards gameplay at that juncture. So yeah, any parting thoughts, Sam, before we cut to our lunch break?
Oh, this has been great. Commentating with you, hanging out, watching some wonderful Scrabble. Thanks to everyone watching. It's great seeing your thoughts in the chat and spending time, watching some great Scrabble. So, yeah, I hope to, well, I guess you're playing too, but hope maybe I'll be on the other side of one of these things next week when I'm, over the board in Maryland. But thanks everyone, and thanks to the, Wigpo Coco folks and the stream folks for making this happen.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So with that, we'll cut to our lunch break. We're going to take the stream down. I'm going to post a video if you're interested in that. And we will be back at 3 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. Central with 4 more games from the WOW division at the 2025 World Cup. See you then.